Hello everyone and welcome to Fight Night Legends EU, brought to you by Giant Slayer and Wisdom. My name is Scarzig and I'm joined on the desk today by Silverfuse. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing great.
I'm
And
really glad you were able to join us today. How are you feeling?
I'm so excited to see these games. It's been a bit since I've been at the desk, so I'm really excited to cast again. And especially with you, we haven't casted together before.
Really? I thought we did. But,
I don't, wait, did
old
we? I
man,
don't know.
old man memory. It's been certainly a long enough time. We are
Yeah.
overdue, long overdue. And for those of you who have also forgotten what the format is for today's event, let me go over that for you. This is a double elimination bracket with our 8 invited players from all across the EU server. All matches are going to be best of 3, and our players bring 3 decks with no duplicate region combinations and no champion overlap. Each player does get to ban one of their opponent's decks and then must win that best of 3 with their 2 remaining decks. And then, of course, the classic EU bracket reset, still waiting in the wings there. And the players, as always, competing for that sweet $200 prize pool, with the top 2 players being invited for the next fight night. But getting into the bracket as well, we've got our 8 players here. Jokund and Castman, a fellow caster, wanted on Twitter for us to give him some caster blessings. So the power's got to come from deep within you, my friend, I'm sure. Meganaz and Tricky as well, Ultraman and Bullet, Broken Ball, and Why No Momo. I mean, a few new faces here, but a few heavy hitters as well. I think that for Fight Night, that's usually how things end up going down. But the first match that we do have selected is going to be the one and only Bullet versus Ultraman. These 2 players have been just tearing up the EU scene for a very long time. We know that Bullet was kind of on a bit of a hiatus, but still one of the best players from Italy. Was one of the flagship players for the EU Masters team for that region. And he's, back in action. So I'm really glad that we're able to give him that welcome back here. Contrasting that with Ultraman from Belgium, I mean, he really doesn't need an introduction, I think, at this point. Very powerful player, very strong. Up until very recently was the most winningest Fight Night player, not just for EU, but across all the regions. But I believe it was Floppy Mudkip over in NA actually now has the most individual wins for any Fight Night tournament. So Ultraman still holds the title for EU, and maybe he can tie that back up today.
Yep, Ultraman with 4 championships, looking to get that 5th one to tie up with Floppy Mudkip and reclaim that crown, or at least share it for now, and then maybe one of them will get 6 one day.
Yeah, I mean, we're always hoping, I think, because Ultraman, I actually had a chance to play against him in a special charity tournament that happened a couple months ago, and, he's still sharp, he's still very scary, even though the format that we were playing under was like a weird draft format, he was still able to put some very scary decks together, so I am excited to see him play today, and he's got some pretty interesting decks. Ultraman has brought Lulu, Ahri, which we're going to try to take a quick look at right before we jump into the match, because the players are already getting into position to start that first game. But this is a deck that a lot of players, it's one of those decks, if you love it, you love it, right? If it's managed to kind of win your heart, then you're just going to be an advocate for this list. It does some very powerful things. This particular version is P and Z. It's not the Bandle City version that we've often seen kind of dance around with this package of cards with the Lulu Flame Chompers. But the Sign in Thousand Tailed and Windfarer Hatchling means that you are going to be hitting very, very heavy in the late game.
Yep, we've seen versions of this deck before with Lulu and Jinx. That was something players experimented with, over a year ago at this point, just because the Flame Chompers and Lulu is so strong together. But looking like Ahri could be the better counterpart to Lulu in this deck instead of Jinx.
The early idea that we saw was, Ahri's ability to swap essentially does let you carry that buff a bit further down the line with the Lulu, where Flame Chompers can challenge something, and then the swap just keeps going forward. Being able to get a lot of elusive damage and be able to threaten your opponent with Get Excited and Mystic Shot is very potent currently. A lot of decks that do have these aggressive ideas just rely on rallies mostly and not direct Nexus damage. So even when you're about to stabilize, this deck can draw into those outs. And, you know, Ultraman taking a bit of a cautious route, running a couple copies of Deny as well, getting that disruption against enemy Golden Aegis or Yordles and Arms, or even, you know, a big board clear that could really set you back. But we're going to be getting into the pick and ban phase soon. I do see, of course, a couple copies of Aloof Travelers snuck into the list. So again, Ultraman has this very strong core win condition, but a nod to some open-ended disruption that I think can certainly win some games. We've seen Aloof Travelers in certain matchups. You know, getting rid of those key cards is just so important.
Yeah, being able to just say, all right, I'm not going to only go about my game plan. This isn't the only idea. I want to have ways to interact with my opponent, and Denied being a great way to do that. And especially, like you said, stopping Golden Aegis is such a big thing when so many Demacian decks rely on that card, and without it, usually they can't even win the game. So having a Denied to stop that can make a huge difference.
The Lulu, the Lulu Ahri, if you're forced into one of those bad trades where you need to keep yourself alive and then your board is just gone, your Lulu and your Ahri don't really have anything to combine with. They are not going to be able to close out the game by themselves. So we have to be able to shut down those rallies and those, you know, those big attacks. But the pick and ban again is coming. Bulat versus Ultraman. Bulat, just to quickly look at the decks, we've got Overwhelm, the new Nardarius Overwhelm. You know, definitely a nod to Rico Rex. Misfortune Quinn, Scouts, of course, and then Lulu Fizz, Yordles and Arms. The Lulu Fizz being, I think, the more tried and true popular variant of kind of what Ultraman is going for the Lulu Ahri. So both players, I think, again, going for a more board-based style. That's really been, I think, the name of the metagame for a long time. We are seeing some cracks start to show, but just for this week, this is what the players are deciding to go for. And I am getting word that the bans are ready to go. We're going to be jumping into that here pretty soon. We're going to get the first game underway. Ultraman's other two decks, by the way, are the new Ezreal Caitlyn. Ezreal Caitlyn has really risen to prominence for its ability to counter Bandle City. And then the other deck is the Fizz-Nar Yordles and Arms deck. So Silverfuse, what do you think about this lineup? What do you think that Ultraman might be trying to ban here?
Ooh, that's a tough one to say. I wouldn't be surprised if he went for the Overwhelm here. But this Lulu Fizz deck that he just took a look at, I know it can do some insane things where all of a sudden they have 4 units in Yordles and Arms on turn 4 and they're killing you. So getting rid of that would make a lot of sense as well. I feel like overall he can probably deal with the Scouts okay. You know, he kind of has the tech of, you know, the Deny and such too. So it looks like he is getting rid of that Lulu and Fizz, you know, not wanting to deal with the high roll potential of, you know, a couple units, Yordles and Arms, and boom, dead. Seen it way too often in tournaments. You want to avoid those overall and just kind of go for more, you know, you want to make sure that your game plan can be consistent against your opponent and that you're not going to get high rolled out of a win.
Very, very true. The lineup that Bulat has constructed just makes the opponent uncomfortable. All of the potential bans don't really seem that good on paper, and we can see, look at this, keeping the Quinn in the opening hand. This is something I never thought I would actually ever see for Scouts. Typically, you know, it was always hard mulligan, look for that misfortune, but now with Petricite, Broadwing, and Sculptor allowing you to set the stage for your early game in a lot more tempo-oriented way, and just get that early dominance, you're able to set up for Quinn to be a back-breaking play more consistently.
And yeah, was able to find the early game 2 drops. Honestly, both of our players' hands are looking fantastic.
The Sculptor Broadwing versus the Boom Baboon into the Lulu and Ahri. So this is what we are hoping to see. Both players off to a very solid start. We didn't want this game to just snowball one way or the other. That's going to be the big thing that Ultraman needs to overcome, is that Bulat is playing these lists that can just 1, 2, 3, 4 and just are ahead of you over and over again for the remainder of the game.
And decided to take that trade there. Despite the fact that Sculptor could give additional value here, didn't really want to take 3 damage, knowing that Ultraman's deck can be extremely bursty and just kind of do a ton of damage out of nowhere with this Ahri and Lulu combo.
Yeah, the trade there really shows how much Bulat is respecting the setup potential, right? The 3-1 could very easily become a, get buffed up by a Lulu. Then suddenly that good trade is just no longer there. Bulat saying, with the Sharp Sight, with the Bright Steel Protector, this Petrosite Broadwing is going to do enough for me, even without that HP buff. Ooh, Sanctum Mageseeker Conservator actually being created by the Island Navigator. This is a 1-drop that will create a random non-Demacian 6+ cost spell in Bulat's hand when this dies.
And Twin Disciplines doing his job here, protecting this Lulu. Sharp Sight isn't able to kill the Lulu, so it's not going to be used here.
Mini Morph! Oh, man!
Oh, no! We can't escape it wherever we go!
The Mini Morph being employed by the Scouts now. That's... Ultraman is going to get a very unpleasant surprise here a little bit later in the game. Something big like the Windfare Hatchling in hand or Sign in Thousand Tails is going to get completely shut down. Here's the
even
big
the
Twin
Ahri
Scout
itself.
swing. Yeah.
Ooh. And these Scouts are looking a bit dangerous here. Everything going to plan now with having the Quinn, keeping it in the mulligan, knowing that the turn 5 on the attack was going to be extremely important to get this down and be able to clear off units of Ultraman. So really smart mulligan by Bulat here.
Into the second Quinn for the Valor, getting that Blinding Assault, and keeping that Quinn incredible heads-up play, specifically for this matchup too. And of course, just general scout strategy. But now we've got sort of like the final like Voltron Avengers Assemble kind of happening here for Ultraman, right? We've got the Ahri, we've got the Lulu, we've got the Flame Chompers. It's all ready to go.
And Ultraman does have plenty of tools on hand to deal with the response here. So looking like he's going to go ahead and take a swing here, deciding exactly how he wants to do it though.
Yeah, with Ahri's ability to swap away from her blocker, there is potential for like maybe Lulu, then Ahri, then Flame Chomper, and then have set it up so that the Quinn has to block the Ahri, or just having this other Twin Discipline to back her up. So it definitely feels good. There's still 4 HP up for Bulat to throw down that Golden Aegis, but as long as Ultraman gets to swing first, he might be able to dismantle the board enough for that rally does not seem worth.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see which direction both our players go, as it is a very board-centric state right now. Plenty of things going on, and looks like we do see another Fleet Feather Tracker here ready to go, and Ultraman planning out his method of attack now.
So giving up the Golden Aegis threat, just putting another blocker down, shows that Bulat wants to respect Ultraman's potential here. Now we've got the swap like we were talking about. We've got Ahri boosted up to a 4/4, and then switching with the Flame Chompers, essentially extending that buff a little bit further down the line. Value trade with the Sump Dredger, so now it's 3v3, and these board-based games, once you get set up, once you get these power cards in the mid game, everything is on a razor's edge. This game could swing one way or the other with one bad trade with one key top deck.
Yeah, and Bulat does have the value here going into the future, it looks like, although Ultraman does as well, now that he's drawn the tails as well as the hatchling too. As you said, it really could go either way depending on the way these players decide to make their trades and when they use their buffs. There's just so much going on, it's almost hard to keep track of.
There's so many different lines and so many potential threats. This might make Bulat put the Sharp Sight down. Very hesitant, you can see here, saying, okay, the Twin Disciplines covers the Sharp Sight. If I go for this, what about Mystic Shot? What about the Get Excited potentially answering this? And
Ooh.
Ultraman, I do like this. Rather than saving the Lulu, we're just going to stun the Quinn. She will level up. Won't level up because the Scouts are going down. And she won't get... Oh, yeah. So she does level up. We still have the attack token. but
Yes.
we don't get the free Valor off the Quinn is what I mean.
Yes, no free Valor. And Ultraman's saying, okay, we're gonna go ahead and take care of that. And now the resources, or at least for the creatures, are very low in Bulat's hand. Has this Quinn alive, which is big, but after that, kind of has a few things to work with. We'll have to see what the top deck is, where Ultraman has resources to work with in the future.
This is the classic way that players have always beaten scouts, is if you can weather the storm. Once we get past like 6 mana, that's like their massive swing turn where they're starting to hit like Cytherea the Bold or something. And the deny off of Sided Thousand Tail that has come through.
The deny right on time, but we do see in hand there is a second one that we may see, and now Ultraman has no mana to work with.
Again, low enough on resources where you have to commit to that big sign in play. Bulat doesn't need to go for the Golden Aegis just yet. Wants to see what the next top deck is. Oh no!
Oh wow!
The misfortune getting in with this Golden Aegis would be a level up this turn.
I love this combo from Ultraman here. Just being able to stop this Quinn, stop it from pulling. You know, creating another Valor and just pulling away units. Really needs them to block here, and as you said, weather the storm of scouts. Just has a little bit further to go to make it.
And another draw. The Sump Dredger coming in clutch, summoning another unit and just drawing more cards. Even with the mini morph stopping this Windfarer Hatchling, an AoE +2/+2 on this board could still result in not maybe a straight victory, but forcing Bulat to trade enough of their board where it's just not going to be a potential comeback at all. And
I love this decision here not to block the 6/7. Ultraman preparing for the next turn, knowing that he needs to close out the game here, or else this Misfortune and Quinn are going to take it over. And of course, still being worried about Golden Aegis, you know, no longer has a way to deny it. So I really do appreciate this.
Ooh, classic. We've got the skip on the Zonite Urchin. The new feature that did added a few patches ago where you don't need to discard a card now. You can just choose to skip. Just wants to get the 2/1 to get another body in play for the Windfarer Hatchling buff. This is a card that I have not seen like actually played in such a long time, since like the old school like Zed
Freljord Ionia, where you would play Kinko Wavefinder to summon Omen Hawk in Navori Blade Scout.
Oh my,
that's the last time I remember it.
Those were the days. But we do have a little bit of a perspective change here. Bulat, you can really see the expression on his face, trying to figure out, is there a way out of the situation? We've got 12, 17 damage coming through here. So the mini morph needs to be cashed in just to change this 5/7 into a 3/3 or stop the Ahri, who actually isn't close to leveling up. Again, her main purpose in this deck is to extend that Flame Chomper's buff.
And down to 1 health after the surprise mini morph from Conservator, from the randomly generated 1-drop earlier. One of the few like amounts of randomness within the Scouts archetype.
And now we've got enough blockers into a Windfarer Hatchling to reinforce this board once again. Baby, you know, body plus a Yordles and arms. Not slow speed, can't be denied. Quinn finally getting a chance to attack. The stuns lined up so well for Ultraman there, right? The Quinn level up happened. She was kept in the opening hand. It was certainly the focus of Bulat's strategy to get her leveled up quickly and have her just take over the board. But the concussive palm into the Ahri's charm to recycle Tail the Dragon to palm her again and say, no, there is no Valor, was just the great way to finally take over the board with the Windfarer.
Yep. We all know that Ionia is really great at saying no, and it said no over and over and over again against that poor Quinn, who was leveled, excited, and there just wasn't much else to be done. Beautifully navigated by both players as well. Ultraman being able to, as you said, weather the storm, and was able to capitalize off of it.
So going into game 2, Bulat still trying to pick up a win with the Scouts, and Ultraman on their other Bandle City list here. Yeah, this is the Fizz Nar Yordles and Arms. And the Fizz, of course, Bilgewater, Bandle City, also has Bomber Twins in here for the Shurima Bandle City, so is looking to be much more aggressive, getting those region combinations boosted up fully, and then just going for the win with Yordles and Arms.
Yep, and the Sculptor being taken down by the Mystic Shot, Ranger's Resolve will be saved for another day, as wanting to protect more than one unit that can easily die from a Pokey Stick or something in the future as well. So, love being conservative with the single Ranger's Resolve in hand. You know, making sure to get more value out of it than that.
Oh, especially... Telescope, picking up the Aloof Travelers. This is going to snipe either Cythria or the 4 Demacia that's in the hand. That'll be coming up soon.
Yeah, Aloof Travelers, especially when you get an alpha generated card, feels so good when you don't have to main deck it and you're just able to use it against a deck that does have these larger cards, such as, you know the 4 Demacia is there, and then Cythria, also another great option too. They both feel great to see get out of the hand.
And against a mid-range deck like this especially, where that is where their win cons really start to tap, like, just lose their luster, discarding those means that you get a very powerful potential win here. The Ranger's Resolve is cashed in. Not only are you protecting the Valor here, you're setting up a much better trade for yourself to swing into this Gnar. Ultraman did not send the Pokey Stick to the Nexus to get the level up, was valuing the potential removal of that stick a lot more, which you'd like to see. But here comes the block. Now, it's important to note that Ultraman does have 2 main deck Wallop, but that copy of Wallop in the hand, as we saw, was an additional copy of Gnar, so definitely makes sense that you would just trade that away and summon a fresh one. You still get the Pokey Stick.
Yeah, Wallop being an insanely strong card, especially when paired with Gnar, who is also an insanely strong card. So
who generates Pokey Sticks, which is an insanely strong card.
Yeah. He's just pretty much an insanely strong card.
He's my prehistoric little boy. But so Yordles and Arms is now online. Ultraman now just needs to pivot to getting as wide a board as possible with the Poro Cannon and the Zonite Urchins in the hand. This is certainly going to be doable within the next couple. Laurent Bladekeeper, hang on a second. What year is it?
I was a bit confused to see that card too. I was like, oh, all right. I haven't seen you for a long time. I mean, Once Upon a Time was a 2-3, didn't really get played. Got buffed to a 3-3, also didn't really get played except for an occasional Fiora deck. But I haven't really seen it in Scouts or Demacia, so it's interesting to see that tech.
Yeah, I guess we didn't really get a chance to look closely at the Scouts, and of course, I think when your opponent's playing Scouts, you typically know 39 out of 40 of their cards, so this is just in the flex slot, I guess, for the Laurent Bladekeeper, and hopefully that +2/+2 means this Island Navigator can continue to carry, because Ultraman is slowly working his way into a dominant board position to the point where Yordles and Arms is going to make the unthinkable happen, where Scouts is forced to completely trade away their board just to defend themselves and then cannot come back into the game.
Yep. Demacia, well known for not having much draw and also just not many extension of resources in general, so once they do have to make those trades and lose their board, it's game over, essentially. They might be able to live for a few more rounds, but it's just a slow and cruel death after that.
Yeah, you would need to have a top deck leveled up Quinn or something like that to really even have a chance. Fortunately, Cythria the Bold is able to hit the board here. Getting that fearsome tag means a lot of these small blockers won't be able to prevent this damage. And she's not going to get sniped by the Aloof Travelers. So, Ultraman down to 6. The fact that Bulat does not have any burn, though, means that it's going to give Ultraman hopefully a couple more turns to make something happen here.
Yep, does have a bit more of a chance, and does have 2 Poros. I mean, still, Bulat's here at 20 health, going to have pretty big Yordles and Arms. However, there are now 2 Yordles of Arms in hand. And there is...
I mean, there's mana for double Yordles and Arms, right?
There was.
Was it worth it there? I've never seen 2 Yordles and Arms cast in the same round.
It would have been Yeah, 9/9 Poros. So if there had been a little bit of chip damage, it might have been the call. However, sharp sight is definitely a worry to consider here.
So here comes the Golden Aegis. And that means that the Yordles and Arms will need to be used here. Just to bolster this board, get some fearsome blockers. And now with the barrier on the Cythria and the Island Navigator, your scout attack is also going to be pretty much guaranteed. Ultraman does still have that 1-mana Pokey Stick in the hand. Boldlot, no doubt, has probably kept track of that. And it's just a stalemate here, it seems. Ultraman does get the first swing here with this elusive damage. We've got 18 damage. 19 with the Pokey Stick to the Nexus. If you overwrite one of your 6/5s with the Daring Poro to squeeze in 1 more damage, but then you're forced to block, so you've got to swing here, yeah?
You play your Yordles and Arms, I'll play my Golden Aegis, and we'll see if we can have a good time.
I also really do like attacking with the 6/5s there, tempting Bulat to put the Island Navigator or the Cythria in danger for this Pokey Stick, knows that Bulat is going to play around that.
Yeah, it would be a pretty it'd be a pretty bad mistake if we were to see that. We'll be sticking the barrier off anyway of the 3/2, still getting that trade in.
There we go. Clearing the board a little bit. Pokey Stick draws into Gnar.
Ooh.
And here comes 4 Demacia. Again, just setting up a big board. Gnar is going to be the only fearsome blocker here against the Island Navigator.
Yep.
Gonna get another Pokey Stick off of this. You've got to cash it in here to draw into another fearsome blocker. No, wait, you don't have.
No,
you don't have
there's no scout attack.
Yeah, you can't. There is no. Yeah, you're right. No scout attack. My goodness. Whew. I'm like losing my mind here, Silverfuse.
It's coming down. Be a fearsome lethal.
It's coming down to the wire, and you can see that even though Bulat really wants to press the advantage and attack with the Island Navigator, get that scout attack. It's better to just force the damage through, get that bullying stance, because there's no misfortune in play, there's no Quinn. Getting the scout attack, all you're doing is just putting extra damage on your units, right?
Indeed so. And now we're saying what, once Demacia gets behind on the board, Yordles and Arms is a great way to make Demacia get behind on the board. We see board states like this where Demacia can't come back, the board is too wide, it's just gonna get chump blocked. Cythria was a good idea to be able to have the fearsome, to be able to say, all right, we're gonna get this last bit of damage with the fearsome, but it just wasn't enough.
That was such a close game. Both games incredibly close. I think what it might have come down to was the fact in both of those games the Sculptor was answered by the Mystic Shot.
Yes.
The potential snowball of Sculptor, that 1 HP giving you the extra round of attack or defense to keep up with that Bandle City card draw and unit generation is pretty potent. I think Bulat, still generally picked the right lines. It's one of those things that you can never truly predict how the game is going to go, but essentially Ultraman was able to shift the game into a battle of resources, and that's where Bandle City really excels. But we do have the chance to jump into game number 3 of Broken Ball versus Wino Momo, and Broken Ball is on the Lux Zoe. This could be Lux Aphelios.
Lux Zoe Aphelios.
Heavens, let's go. And Wino Momo with that Yordle captain in play that has been hit with the Equinox, no doubt. But this is actually game 2. So these players have been slugging it out for quite a while in game 1.
Yes, this deck has 1 Zoe, 2 Aphelios, and 3 Lux on it.
You love to see it. And then across the board, we've got the P and Z Yordles and Arms. I need to take a look at the list, and it is the 1 Treasured Trash version.
Yes, thank you. Oh, that's been one of my cards, and I've always been putting 1 Treasured Trash. I mean, first off, it makes for great experiences and fun things happen, But I actually do think it has more merit to it than I originally thought. You get a lot of value from a 10-cost card.
Especially against these in order to counter these Yordles and Arms decks, lists are going much more value generation defensive based, and the games are going longer and longer. Treasure Trash can get you those blowouts. We did see it a couple fight nights ago, actually, where Treasure Trash was able to get some big bombs. Crescent Strike does seem like a good idea. Second Equinox to maybe answer the next Yordle Captain is also meritable, but even if you're silencing the Yordle Captain, it'll still get buffed by Yordles and Arms, so the Crescent Strike certainly does matter, I think, a little bit more.
Yeah, Crescent Strike being a pretty solid answer to a lot of board states, especially, as you said, Yordles and Arms. And we do get to see the hand now, 2 Yordles and Arms, and of course the Treasure Trash as well. Speaking of which, I think I saw some pretty salty tweets a couple weeks ago, and I think you're referencing that moment of someone stealing a game with the Treasure Trash.
Whenever anybody loses to Treasure Trash, you're required to tweet about it, whatever the context was, whether it was ladder or tournament. Because I do the same thing. I'm like, man, Aloof Travelers, this card sucks. Take it out of the game. I'm definitely
I'm done with
right
it.
along with the Twitter mob. Triple Yordles and Arms though for Wino Momo.
Oh, these Yordles are going to be bearing lots of arms. Are they activated quite yet? I don't know. Oh yeah, they are. They are.
Okay, I was just counting regions in my head.
Yeah, they weren't glowing, and I was like, oh no, that's a tough one. But nope, they are activated, ready to go. Broken Ball also has this Lux will be set to level fairly soon. We already saw a piece of it, so maybe this is it. Yep, there she goes.
Beautiful. So we get the final spark. We're going to be just slowly grinding the board down now. The final spark. Hitting the Flame Chompers, really good idea. Make it so your opponent doesn't have that challenger to answer the Lux, potentially with Yordles and Arms. She's tanky enough, though, right? Even with Yordles and Arms, she would survive getting pulled by the Flame Chompers. The Petrocite Broadwing could swing in on it here. I would maybe even like to see the Broadwing go into combat first before the final spark. But no defensive Yordles and Arms. Opens up Broken Ball to use the Shield of Duran to take down the Shadow Tech Walker.
Yeah, I'm a little bit surprised not to see the defensive Yordles and Arms just because you have 3 of them. And I don't really know where else they're going to go. But of course, it might just be, it's just so hard to say.
The double Daring Poro development into the double Yordles and Arms in the forbidden combo. It's coming together, Silverfuse. I said it earlier that I've never seen it happen before. Until now. We've got just enough mana for it.
Oh, the Treasure Trash did get thrown away though, so my heart is aching a little bit. Only a little bit though.
I think when you're against a Targon deck, you kind of know things are going to go long and it's going to be a grind. You'd want to keep that, I think, as the ace up your sleeve. But
yeah, I think there might be a card that we're not seeing because there was just a hover and I don't think I saw any of the cards move. I'm not sure though.
Yeah, I think that Momo might just be saying, you know what? Yordles and Arms is a ridiculous card and I just have to have full faith that it's going to carry me through the dark times. Very rarely does Yordles and Arms directly kill you. Sometimes you just cast it and it again forces you to trade your entire board away.
We're going to see it, Scarzig. We're gonna see it. There's the setup right there. We're gonna have a giant elusive board. However, though, this single combat is going to have something to say about it.
That's for the best. Single combat comes through. We get to take down one of the Daring Poros. This is still a lot of damage being presented. This Flame Chompers is also going to get Giga buffed to take down the Lux. And Broken Ball, without that key champion to keep grinding down the board, could certainly fall behind from here. When we look at the card advantage, however, Wino Momo needs to make an insurmountable board position happen.
There is another out here, is if we were to play the Traveler and find an Equinox. But it's too late now. Oh, there's not going to be the double. Ooh, I really thought we were going to see the double Yordle in Arms here. But
if you go for the double, it would be lethal against another single combat or a sharp sight.
Yeah, there's
Broken Ball
definitely...
would probably Pale Cascade to look for it.
Looking at the list, there's only a single combat, and there's only 2 sharp sight.
Ooh.
There is also a concerted strike, though, so that might be a thought right now.
Momo's reconsidering. No, cast it, cast it. Chat, send the energy. Yell at your screens. Make Momo cast the second Yordles and Arms.
Oh yeah, I thought we were gonna see a dead Lux, but you know, Broken Ball doesn't know about it, but should be having a sigh of relief right now.
Yeah, just gonna keep this for the backup swing. This gives Broken Ball a couple more rounds to get these Daring Poros off of the board. We've got the Golden Sister developed now, so we have an elusive blocker, 8 damage worth of lifesteal. What can the Loping Telescope find? Epic rarity. Crescent Strike was the pickup.
Okay. No crazy epic spells, as much as, you know, we kind of want to see it. But the Crescent Strike is always, as we said, a pretty good feel overall, especially when you have these lifesteal units that are taking away your hard-earned work that you did with your Yordles and Arms.
Yeah, essentially offsets most of the damage that was done before. So it's going to come down to Momo doing the Crescent Strike, stunning the elusive blocker, one of the lifesteal units, and slamming in for 15 with this third Daring Poro.
Yeah, there's definitely a path to victory here with these few cards on hand.
Yeah, Broken Ball back up to exactly 15. It's good that you don't need to worry about rally, so you can spend your mana a bit freely. I think Broken Ball might even go for a preemptive draw with the Pale Cascade. Yes. Getting some pseudo healing on the Golden Sister here to protect from Pokey Stick. Just a little bit more progress towards getting that Lux Laser. Blinded Mystic is godlike. Yeah, Broken Ball is definitely in the winning position now.
Yes.
Taking out the Daring Poro thanks to the final spark, and now Blinded Mystic to silence one of the other Daring Poros, and this can also just be used post Yordles and Arms. Momo, by not going for the greedy line, is now getting locked out of the game here in game 2.
Yep, and as you said, just being able to grind out these Vandal City decks by just the tip of their chin. And just being able to, you know, stall out a little bit, you know, heal up a little bit, and then just own the board afterwards and slowly be able to, you know, keep your opponent in check. That's looking like Broken Ball is going to be able to execute that plan just as intended. That's the reason this deck is in the lineup, is exactly for this type of matchup.
And so far, we've seen it over and over where Vandal City is just barely able to outvalue Scouts, and now these other value-based decks are just barely able to outvalue Vandal City. We tuned into the game a little bit late. We don't know if Momo maybe low-rolled a bit by not getting any Lulus or Fizzes as part of the equation, but you know, under a lot of circumstances, the triple Yordles and Arms draw certainly might seem like a brick. We saw that Momo was really struggling to construct a board to make proper use of those fantastic board-wide buffs. And also discarded the treasure trash, so rip.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're missing that treasure trash. That might have been the key.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I feel like if you, between the two lines, you know, I could certainly be wrong on this, but if you discard the treasure trash, I feel like you do have to take a little bit more of the greedy line, because you've taken away option B out of the equation. It's gone. Yeah. So you kind of have to go with the option A now. But if you hadn't discarded the treasure trash, then you have a bit more flexibility and you don't have to be as greedy.
So yeah, something could have come out of there with the treasure trash for sure. And random cards, there's infinite possibilities, like when you're trying to think of like the combinations that could even arise. But overall, big shout out to Broken Ball for, again, bringing that Demacia Targon back into the fold. Not just dragons, not just Pantheon, but like value, Lux, Demacia Targon. It's like a little bit of a side archetype that's been doing decently well in some tournaments before. And now, of course, making the spotlight here in Fight Night. But we will take a little bit of a closer look at the bracket now to see how the rest of the matches shook out. So Caspin was able to take down Jokund and is now going on to face Tricky Treacy. Ultraman and Broken Ball going to be another heavy hitting match in the next set. But don't forget that even the players that lost, you know, this is a double elimination format. They can still make that heroic run from the losers bracket. And it's something that we've seen time and time again in Fight Night EU. So I'm still excited for what these players have in store.
Yeah, I mean, we gave Castman the blessing, and look what happened.
The 2-0.
You know, usually it's the caster curse, but this time it was the caster blessing.
It's because he is also a caster, so it like cancels it out.
Cancels
and flips
out.
the polarity.
2 negatives make a positive.
Yes, he's flipped the polarity, and now he's going to become even more powerful as he moves through the bracket. So big shout out to Castman, but we're going to go to a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to get into more Fight Night Legends action, so stay tuned. Hello everyone and welcome back to Fight Night Legends EU. We just got done with the first round of the bracket and we're about to move into the semifinals. Castman is going to be back on deck. The 22-year-old caster from Romania, our brother in arms here, trying to make the run, has a pretty powerful mid-range lineup and favorite decks Brandle Tree. I hope that that's a bit. Meanwhile, going up against Tricky from Ireland. I know that there were some people in chat very excited to see some Irish representation finally in the tournament, and Tricky has been a pretty high-level player, I think, for quite a long time. You know, just high Masters play, very clean reads on the metagame, and pretty stand-up guy, if I do say so myself. But when we compare these two players against one another, I think that Tricky probably has a reputation as being a bit more of a ladder warrior. And so kind of converting that to tournaments, even if you've been in a lot of other tournaments, I think that this, this broadcast, again, has always been a way for players that have been doing a lot of work on ladder and in the grassroots scene to actually get their photo out there, get out in front of an audience, and let us talk about them a bit and make a name for themselves. But we do have now the Akshan Sivir from Tricky. This version is, pretty standard. There's some, of course, a few flex slots in this archetype because it is just so. It's a toolbox mid-range. We've got the good Demacian cards, but we're trying to shore up the fact that Demacia and Shrima both kind of lack card draw by running things like Preservarium, relying very heavily on that Warlord's Palace. I love the kind of smattering of different ideas in this list. We know that Cataclysm is very strong. I love the inclusion of Protege. Screeching Dragon and Sithri are fantastic at the top end. We've talked so much about how Sithri is great against Bandle City, and I was actually kind of theory crafting around the fact that if players were to move away from Vikur and Bruiser in that 5-mana slot, we might even put in Swiftwing Lancer instead of going back to Screeching Dragon because you want that extra card. But Silverfuse, what do you think about this Darkness deck?
Yes, we got Darkness, which we've all seen because it was very, it's a pretty popular deck and also very strong. Generally, the build of it hasn't really changed too much. I will say the Wallop, being a great card with Gnar coming out has been a little addition. Also, this one's running Transposition as well. Another way to keep your unit safe, and then it gives you value too if you use it on cards such as like Rekindler, for instance, and also just being able to create additional darknesses too. So I like the one of Transposition Edition as well.
The decks from Tricky are just very toolboxy, very flexible. One group shot, one missed call, one wallop, one transposition. Just having these little silver bullets that can really swing a matchup or a particular situation here and there as it's offered to you. Tricky's really trying to stay tricky, stay on their toes.
Yep.
And the third deck to round out the lineup is Jace Lux, a list that I think has gotten a little bit more notoriety recently. I know that Lux has really been on an upswing. We saw her do really well in that previous set, and just combining Lux's long-term board control potential with just the early mid-game package of Jace and the Mage Seekers. We get big beaters and then big spells.
Yeah, and also in this list too, once again, a lot of the spells are 2-ofs, in some cases 1-ofs as well. And personally, I really like it in these open deck lists when players do this kind of spread where when you're playing on ladder, you're looking for as much consistency, you're looking to grind. But when you're in a tournament situation and you have open deck lists, you want your opponent to be on their toes and not able to play around everything necessarily. And this is one of the ways to do that, of saying, all right, I have a bit more toolbox, I might not always draw my Sharp Sight or my Mystic Shot, but my opponent doesn't know when I have it and when I don't have it. So I think in these type of tournaments, it's one of the better ways to go, and something that a lot of players will fight each other on if it should just be 3-ofs or 2-ofs or 1-ofs. Lots of different ideas behind it.
Mm-hmm. And with that being said, we do get into the bans. Of course, Castman is not going to be allowed to play that Bandle Tree list. And Castman is going to respond by banning out that Sivir Akshan. So now we just got a good board-based showdown here. Lux Jace versus Scouts. The thing about Scouts is when you're playing against a Demacian mirror match, this kind of is true for any Demacia deck, right? Is the one that's greedier tends to win. The one that can go bigger. So unless Castman hits a very powerful opening, Tricky is just going to stabilize and take over the game completely. The big problem I'm thinking about with this matchup is that it might be almost impossible to actually play a 6-mana spell, though, to actually get the Lux and the Mage Seeker online, because you're going to be under so much potential threat of just a rally punishing that play. Yeah,
the rallies, we've seen one get denied earlier, and that made all the difference in the Ultraman game. And without the deny, it was going to be a lot tougher. So not having access to that in these regions makes a huge difference. However, we did see in previous games that Sculptor getting removed by Mystic Shot did matter quite a bit. So we'll see if Tricky decides to go with that.
Yeah, the Penitent Squire, a nice one of tech for the Scouts list. It's come in and out of the deck as time has gone on, and it just gives your opponent a little bit of information. I have the Vanguard Sergeant, I have Sithri of the Bold. Tricky just going to Mystic Shot the Sculptor, like we said, a way to keep that from snowballing the game, rather than floating the mana and trying to go for this assembly line.
And we see the open passes, kind of wanting to get down this Forge Worker, but not wanting to take 5 damage on an open attack at the same time, and gonna go ahead and just mirror this Vanguard Sergeant.
It is important to note that Tricky is not running the Forge of Tomorrow, the 3-mana landmark that does summon that 3/3, gives you a little bit of a refund. Just trying to say, I'm shooting for matchups where I'm naturally just going to have that 6 mana and play it, and the raw impact of that activating my Lux, activating my Jace, is going to offset the need to give up my board for a landmark and a discount.
Taking quite a bit of damage here. We'll be able to develop the Jace and looking to do, well, quick attack or challenger mode. And there is merit to either one. Wouldn't be surprised either way,
I think we go for challenger here. If we go for quick attack, Caspin probably isn't going to block anyway, just takes 4 damage and then swings back on you with the Petricite Broadwing. I think we've got to go for challenger and try to take down this Broadwing and then just get a value trade against this Jace. We've got a second one in the hand, and we're slowly getting further up the curve where some more of these cards might end up mattering. But I think if Tricky does not clear the board that is in front with the Sithri of the Bold, with Genevieve in the hand as well, it's the potential for this to convert to a closeout is going to be pretty rough, in my opinion.
And respecting sharp sight here is what it's maybe looking like by not attacking with this Jace.
At the same time, I think that you would still want them to spend the sharp sight, right?
I think so too.
You've got the second Jace in hand. The Petricite Broadwingers are going to pull your champions to the side regardless. So Jace
and you
is
can already
theoretically...
see this for Demacia in hand too.
If that play was a for Demacia rather than the Misfortune, and then the Petricite Broadwings are just huge and kill your champions, it could be pretty rough. But back to back is the card of choice. We're going to buff the Lux and the Jace, make it so that they can survive this this big attack that's coming, and we get the final spark here in response to the Misfortune. Takes down the Broadwing, though. There's no scouts in play, so Golden Aegis is a bit rough for a rally, but you aren't threatening to level up the Misfortune right away.
Yeah, still not a fun spot to be in against Demacia. When it's able to own the board the way that it is right now, it's not something you want to see on the other side.
Lux is big enough to trade into this Misfortune, however, we've got 12 damage coming through onto the Nexus. Caspin, that means Caspin's only going to need to draw a second Misfortune to get that one little bit of over-the-top damage. Jace goes down to the Broadwing. Jace, and now there's a second Jace in hand, but Lux has to 1v2. Assembly line could be the answer. We get 2 3/3s and another final spark.
It does have a few answers, or at least being able to make the board go a little bit wider, but as you said, one Misfortune in the game could be over, as we don't have those tools really in hand right now. You know, there's no single combats, there's no concerteds, there's no way of cleanly dealing with the Misfortune. Of course, we do have Lux making multiple lasers, but that's about it.
Yep, final spark comes through. If you want it to be guaranteed, you kill the Penitent Squire, again, playing around that sharp sight. If you try to snipe the Sergeant, you're really trying to call out the sharp sight and Ranger's Resolve. Caspin can respond to this with, Island Navigator, or you think Genevieve?
I mean, I was gonna say, I don't think there should be playing around sharp sight right now, because there would have been lethal the previous turn.
Yeah, you do have that read now.
So, yeah, I feel like getting rid of the 3-4 with the... Especially if you worry about sharp sight, you're going to trade this in anyway. I'm a bit surprised.
And so Cythria has Challenger thanks to the Tattered Banner. Sculptor comes through, setting up once again for Genevieve or this Island Navigator. Tricky somehow able to chain these expensive 6-mana spells over and over again. Could get another final spark here. Keep the board under control. Or do you just want to go wide?
I like the 4 Demacia here, being able to try to protect the Lux a bit more, making another final spark. And, of course, you know, however, though, I was gonna say, it could be a little bit scary with the Island Navigator, but not as scary now. And I assume that we will see this final spark come down to remove another unit. And because Cythria, it does give Fearsome, but everything blocks Fearsome on this board.
A pass. Interesting. I was thinking that you can just spark the Sculptor. It's not going to attack anyway, I suppose. This gives you a way to just let Genevieve trade into the Lux, and you get to spark the Cythria the Bold post-combat.
Yep. Just really wanting to clear the full board.
Yeah, because Lux was going to go down regardless. So I do like the pass with the final spark.
And, I mean, all of a sudden, it's looking like it's really hard for the Scouts to get back into this game. You know, as we said, weathering the storm, making sure that you're able to live. You have 1 HP, but it's enough! 1 HP is living!
Castmen just need to survive for like 2 rounds. Misfortune, where are you? Just need that one love tap to hit the Nexus. Here comes Jace, levels up. 5-5 with quick attack. I probably would have put Challenger on the Jace again, but just going to start swinging in. Has the acceleration gate.
I think that's why the quick attack was decided to get that extra, or is it double attack or the extra keyword? Double attack.
You get an extra keyword. That is true.
Extra keyword. Trying to heal up a little bit, maybe. Like, hoping to get that would be a possibility. And, you know, some lifesteal would feel pretty good. But I think also worried about a wide board still coming back, and if you can't block a 1 unit, then you're in trouble.
Yeah, exactly. If you swing in here, you're buffing your board enough where a Castman will be forced to block.
Oh, Scout! And a Challenger.
Oh my god! So now Jace comes through with 9 attack, ripping through this board. I'm the Scout now, says Tricky. Jace was waiting, just writing down the technology, and Eureka, I've invented the Scout core, the Scout engine, and I'm attacking again. Castman just needs to draw. Misfortune.
Still, yeah, no response in Tricky's hand. Oh, and isn't able to find it. Wait, ooh, are we able to get a trait here onto the 3/3 and sneak a bit of damage in? I don't think, no, not with these units that can get developed. Very, very close, but Tricky is going to be able to just eke it out with 1 health unless something just absolutely devastating happens in the next couple turns.
I know, the Island Navigator getting Legion Saboteur or something wild like that for Demacia to buff up this board, trying to just value trade. Castman is just on the border of taking over this game. Do we have enough blockers here? With Genevieve, with Scout and Challenger, the ability to take out 2 units and still be alive. I think that you pass, develop Radiant Guardian post-combat.
Yeah. Radiant Guardian really can't be dealt with. I think there's a lot of ways to victory here, and Jace making 2 more cards here
I
with the
forgot about
Remembrance.
that!
Yeah.
Oh my god, he doubles the Remembrance!
Oh yeah, there's no getting around it now. Jace gets his value, all the value he needed. He says goodbye now, but he did the work. He did his job is exactly the way he needed to.
Every single game on the stream so far today has been just incredibly close. This is so wild. And then you got Swiftwing Lancer off of the Remembrance, and that's going to give you another card when it goes down. And now...
Oh, Cytheria!
Lady of Clouds! Do it! Do it!
Do
There's
it,
the misfortune!
please.
No!
Oh my
Suck
gosh!
one round too
heartache.
late! There's even a rally! We could have done misfortune Golden Aegis!
The heartache of Casman right now. Tricky celebrating. Please play the misfortune. Show it. Show it. Yes. Oh my gosh.
And now we've got Lady of Clouds for the lethal off of Swiftwing Lancer. It's the prophecy, right? We've got the caster blessing, but also the Scarzig prophecy that Swiftwing Lancer is actually a disgustingly good card. What a game. Went down to 1 HP, was that on round 5 or something? And then managed to carry
so
it all the
early.
way to round 10?
Yep. Just dodging that misfortune over and over and over again. And then when he finally found it, it was just a turn too late. Or if there was a way to prevent lethal too with that rally, it was so close.
And that was only the first game. We still got...
I think we just watched 5 games.
We watched our entire lives flash before our eyes. What an intense set. We've got even more games here between Tricky and Castman. Scouts versus Darkness. What do you know about this matchup, Silverfuse? I'm a bit unfamiliar.
Personally, I don't really play either of these archetypes much. If I were to guess, I would feel like Darkness would be able to just, slowly deal with and outvalue the Scouts overall. Rally could present issues at times, but I feel like with a solid pilot of Darkness, I feel like the Darkness would be a bit favored, just being a little bit slower and being able to deal with most of the units. I mean, even things like this is Vile Feast, the Twisted Catalyzer is off to a really great start. I am having a little chuckle myself right now, seeing this double misfortune in hand.
Oh no! I know, it's always late. Those are the misfortunes from the last game now.
It's taunting.
So we've got the stabilization now. Twisted Catalyzer just threatening on defense. We've got Darkness in the hand about to get boosted. This can take down the misfortune if need be. And I think you called it right, Silverfuse. If Castman can set up misfortune, Quinn, Golden Aegis, get that strong setup, Tricky's not going to be able to defend. And it's going to come down to if Shadow Isles can do the classic things it really wants to do against a board-based archetype.
Ooh, and no attack from Castman there. That cannot feel good as a Scouts player. On turn 4, you're unable to attack, push any more damage. Darkness at 19 health, has a full board. It's already looking like a tough spot to be in.
This is a very, very rare line indeed, where Scouts isn't attacking you for pressure. They just focus completely on setting up and then going for like a big scout or a big rally turn, something like with a 4 Demacia, for example, to just eventually swing it on you. Your entire board is clear, and then they crack back against you before you have a chance to redevelop. It's kind of like every once in a while, pirate aggro is forced into a line where they have to babysit the misfortune and level her up rather than sacrificing her immediately. It's just a line that this deck very rarely takes because it doesn't want to play like that.
Yeah, it's a bit more spooky because
Ooh.
You don't know if the payoff will happen necessarily.
Crackshot Corsair, very nice. And the Darkness boosted by the Twisted Catalyzer going to take down this misfortune. We could see Castman let this through and play the second misfortune, or cash in a Sharp Sight here to protect her. And with 1 out of 4 attacks, no attacks on the misfortune, I don't know if you even care about keeping this one alive.
I think I personally would let her go. The Sharp Sight, especially when I'm attacking, is worth a lot more than playing it defensively just to save something. Sharp Sight is just such an incredibly strong card that I'd rather be a little bit more greedy with it, but maybe that last game, knowing if I had to make it rain earlier, the game would have been different. So maybe wanting to keep her alive a little bit more than usual.
But Tricky has had a pretty good early game, right? Just you get your Twisted Catalyzer, your Conchologist, all of your early game minions that you want to block with, a couple Pokey Sticks. So things are good right now, but beyond this, the rest of the hand, there's not a lot to pick up the slack after he's finally forced to trade this turn. So here finally comes the attack through. Misfortune was saved just specifically to just be another attacker to make Tricky trade down this board, right? We've got the second Sharp Sight to protect the Misfortune once again, and this is a position where Tricky is sweating. I'm trading away my entire board, and I'm so worried about Golden Aegis.
Oh yeah, I would be so scared of Golden Aegis right now. That would be my worst nightmare. However, I mean, of course, we have the caster vision, and we know that's
from the
not
islands.
Ooh, killing off this Misfortune.
Marcus of the Islands, boosting the Conchologist to take down this Misfortune, and that's 2 Sharp Sights cashed in. I wonder if Catsman was just recognizing that if this darkness scales up, it doesn't matter if I have Sharp Sight to protect because it's going to get outscaled. It's better for me to just cash it in now. But the combat does go through, and Tricky does get the Sentinel in play. Big lifesteal unit, hopefully keeps things under control. Tricky has a dead Rekindler in the hand. No champions have been drawn or played as of yet, but there is also a Ruination ready to go.
Oh, and we know once the Ruination hits, there is no coming back from that. I mean, right now, this double Sculptor Misfortune looks really good on the side of Castman, but we know that Ruination is tricky to deal with. However, this does give access to play the Quinn with the Senna being played, and that makes the board a lot more scary, but I assume the scout attack will be taken, and then there will be the answer that Castman does not want to see, and this is a 1 of Ruination too, so Tricky very happy to see that in his hand right now.
We get the scout attack, we get the block with all of this, the Sentinel and the Senna into a Ruination. There is the second Quinn in the hand, but that's still going to be pretty negligible damage from this position, especially since Tricky is also topping themselves off with the Sentinel nicely. Yeah,
there
so
it is. Trades, but the Ruination. And if I was on ladder, it'd be a top right, bottom left for me. But in tournaments, people tend to play it out a bit more because sometimes you never know. But against darkness, it's tough.
We have Quinn and the Vanguard Sergeant. Still have the attack token. If Tricky does have just a darkness that's not castable yet, no Robe Makers in the equation, a dead Rekindler that can bring back the Senna next round. Once the Senna comes back, that might be what's going to be the final straw for Castman here.
Oh, and saving 4 health with that Pokey Stick there too. Or sorry, no, 2 health. I was thinking there was still a scout attack, but we already had our initial scout attack. But still saving a little extra health.
So here we go. And a second Sentinel. Oof, yeah, that's going to be donezo. The 1 of Ruination, as you said, Silverfuse, it's great for tournaments because it's open deck list. You're going to sweat your opponent. They have to respect that Ruination. They might take an open attack when it's not as optimal for them in order to play around that Ruination. And in meta like this, where you're kind of anticipating a lot of board-based decks, it just comes through to blow out your opponent. Castman is playing it out, though. Here in game 2, you've got to really put the pedal to the metal, right? Try to put everything on the line. Darkness at fast speed to answer against the 4 Demacia, taking down this Broadwing. And there is still mana for Golden Aegis.
Debating on between the 2 units. All right, looks like the Broadwing. I was going to say, it's only 3 damage, so... But still making sure that that was the play that he wanted to make.
So now we've got a swing with the Quinn. setting up this scout attack. Then you can and because of the scout, like the timing for the golden aegis doesn't really line up because you missed out on that token. Missed call on the Rekindler to get a second Senna. And that's a one of missed call. Everything coming up for Tricky here. Really carried on the back of that really clutch victory in game 1, dropping down to 1 HP and managing to bring it back. Tricky even taking the damage there. Doesn't want to sacrifice anything to the 6-7.
Yep. And as I mentioned earlier, I really like the one of, toolbox mindset. I mean, Bandle City already kind of does that on its own, but it helps that, say, in this deck you are running a bunch of one-ofs. So many one-ofs. If you play Conchologist, you can shore any of those weaknesses up if you didn't, find your one-of group shot or your one-of wall up. You have another option.
So now here we go into 10 mana. Roguemaker finally hitting the board. This means that these Sennas are going to generate tons of darkness to seal the deal on this game. Ishtali Sentinel is still alive, going to lifesteal for even more. That's 12 HP worth of healing that has been gotten so far. And now we've got two pretty sizable quick attackers here, and Castman is out of resources. Big respect for playing this out, finding the line with the 4 Demacia and the Golden Aegis to put some additional threat on board, but Tricky with the missed call, getting that second Senna, just way too much for a board-based deck to overcome.
Oh yeah, that missed call was just absolutely brutal. Going to an additional 4/4 and a champion on the board when you're a board-based deck, what are you supposed to do against that? Not much, but I really appreciate Castman giving his all, trying to make sure that there, if there is that little percentage that I can win this game, that I'm going for that small percentage and not just giving up.
The changeover, there was that very awkward key turn, right, where Tricky had everything on board in terms of blockers, and then everything else in the hand was just very top-heavy utility and late-game stuff, and there was just enough draws, natural top decks, draws off the pokey stick to get that final little bit of mid-range to as a stopgap measure, and Castman was not able, unfortunately, to jump through the hoop. I like the line in retrospect to protect the misfortune, because if you get the Golden Aegis there, get that level up, you kind of auto win. So I definitely respect it. But we'll take a look now at the rest of how the bracket went. It looks like Broken Ball was actually able to take down Ultraman. Again, Broken Ball, the other heavy hitter in the bracket here. And no doubt those players are going to want to go for a rematch. And that means that Broken Ball and Tricky will be going at it in the winners finals. A lot of 2-0s in the bracket we see here, Silverfuse.
Oh yeah. And do you think this comes down to their lineups that they've brought, that they've targeted, specific people, or do you think it's just been that's the way the cards have fallen?
I think what players are trying to do is they're just queuing up with one deck that is just struggling to get that win, right? Where people are just going scouts, and then scouts is getting 2-0'd. We haven't really been seeing a lot of the rest of the players' lineups. So we'll see if maybe that is a matchup thing. If Broken Ball is going to get into the grand finals, if Ultraman's able to fight back up from the lower bracket. But we'll have to see how that storyline all plays out when we get back from this break. So stay tuned. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fight Night Legends EU. We've just had back-to-back exciting games, exciting sets between these players. We're about to jump into the winners finals. Winners finals? Yes. Broken Ball and Tricky actually going into it. And Broken Ball is a player that we caught the tail end of one of their sets, but we weren't able to highlight his lineup specifically. So I'm really excited to get a closer look at what Broken Ball has brought to the table, known for some of his more off-meta brews. And right away we see it. Feel the Mina. This is a Ionian version of Feel the Rush that's basically meant to beat standard Shadow Isles Feel the Rush. You've got the Denies in here, and you've got the Swiftfoot to kick those 10-10 champions right back into the hand. How are you feeling about this deck in the metagame?
Oh, I love these type of decks. The ones that are like saying like, you know what, you're gonna go big, I'm gonna go even bigger. And you know, Mina Swiftfoot is one of the ways to do that. I also just love the inclusion of Scattered Pod here too, to be able to filter to what you need a bit better, including, you know, Feel the Rush being the only slow speed spell in the deck, so you know you can always have access to it. It's a great way to close out games, and I just love these style of decks so much.
I'm with the early Blighted Ravine, just a little bit of stabilization with the Sentry and the Tavern Keeper, Ice Shard as well. I think that getting to the late game is going to be a pretty easy avenue for this list. But the next deck in Broken Ball's lineup, we do have the deck we saw a little bit of in the previous game, that Lux Zoe Aphelios. The idea with this deck is Aphelios can come down, give you Crescendum, which pulls out the Petrocyte Broadwing for more early game stabilization. Once we get to the late game, Lux just sits there and shoots everything with lasers, and eventually you will win the game just by your opponent running out of threats, right? We've got two Blinded Mystics and 2 copies of Hush, so very defensive build.
Yep, also we saw this work earlier against a Yordle and Arms deck, you know, being able to stall it out, having access to the silences and the hushes, even things like single combat and sharp sight too, stopping the elusives from beating you down with these giant +4/4 buffs. And as I said earlier, we saw this work already. We know why it's here and part of the lineup, and it's something that some players might have to consider banning. I mean, imagine having to ban Aphelios in a tournament, but
in 2022.
Yeah. But that actually could be the call for some players.
I mean, if you hit Aphelios Shield of Durand, he's just going to do what he was doing way back when. He just sits there and moon weapons are killing you. The third deck, however, is the Broken Ball Special. The Lulu Flame Chompers, Yordles, and Arms. Broken Ball absolutely loves this deck with the Yordle Captain. I know that when Broken Ball kind of picks up a deck that he really enjoys and thinks is good, he's going to proselytize, he's going to spam it, he's going to shout it from the rooftops. And, you know, it's because of Broken Ball that I ended up picking up like Xerath Zillion. So I certainly do have to respect the inclusion of this deck just because it's been so strong in and of itself, but I know that he's been playing it for a very long time.
Yeah, and this deck just has so much value in it. I mean, lots of draw, lots of cards creating other cards, and it just lets you, like, it makes the games feel different. That is one of the good things about Bandle City, is although it has maybe a few too many resources, it does make games feel different. From Loping Telescope, Bandle City Mare, even the Bomber Twins give you different decisions to make each game.
The flexibility is very, very important for this list, and Broken Ball was one of the early innovators when it came to like invoke control. And so like his ability to manifest and invoke and pick the proper cards for not only the match at hand, but to pick a card and then shift the match in the direction to maximize the effectiveness of that card, I think is going to really be on full display here. And even with that utility, we still just have, of course, Yordles and Arms, which is a good card in and of itself that's going to close out the game. But the players are still getting set up for their streams, still getting set up for their match, again, the winners finals. Very important for both of these players, right? Broken Ball trying to kind of resituate himself and remind everybody that he's still one of the top Italian players in the game. Tricky, a slightly newer face who is also putting up a pretty strong showing here for Fight Night as well, getting to the winners finals, and they're trying to secure that spot in the grand finals. And that way, when things kind of come down to the wire, you have that second life to kind of keep it up. But Tricky has again a very good toolboxy sort of pseudo mid-range lineup, and the players have to think very deeply about their bans. If I was playing this matchup, I don't even know what I would ban. Probably ban Field Amina. If you're playing Darkness versus Field Amina, that seems like a very hard counter.
That seems like an incredibly hard counter. On top of that, just having access to denies and stuff too against the Darkness deck. Yeah, I feel like Field Amina is just going to outvalue you when Darkness outvalues most decks.
Yeah,
so
it's
seeing
wild.
one that does that against you can't feel the best, and it's not going to be banned in this lineup. So you might have to ban the Field Amina and just say I'll deal with the Lux Zoe Aphelios.
And then
that
Yorls
I'm
and
so
Arms.
happy to
Yeah,
see. And Yorls and Arms. Just such a smart lineup by Broken Ball. Really well put together lineup.
And yeah, you ban the worst matchup, but then the two remaining decks are still so terrifying to play against if you feel like you are forced to ban the Field Amina. And I can just see it now, right? You're like, haha, I play Rekindler and bring my Vagar back, and then she just kicks both of them back into your hand, and it's just an auto lose from there.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even be surprised if it doesn't get banned and you just accept that you might lose the matchup just because Yorls and Arms is so tough to... You know, we've seen it go through, but gosh, that deck is tough.
Ooh, just a snap pick. Doesn't want to deal with the Yorls and Arms, and Darkness was actually banned. Interesting. So I guess there is a bit of a mind game there where if you expect that your opponent isn't going to ban the Field Amina, then you don't need to ban the Darkness. But either way, we've got a Lux Mirror here in the Fight Night EU Winners Finals.
Yes, Lux is my favorite champion from League of Legends, and obviously she had a tough... Oh, she did pretty well in Runeterra at the start, then she had a pretty tough time. But with the introduction of Jace and the buff that she got, she's been played a lot more since then, and I like to see her, especially in Demacia, when it doesn't, you know, we don't always have the spells that we need, but, you know, Targon and PNZ both offering those a bit more now.
Forged Chief comes through. You're going to get that one spell mana back, just slowly building up. Broken Ball has a pretty strong setup here, though, with the Broadwing, with the Solari Priestess. Tricky not running the Targon package, obviously, just has a bit more of a damage-based removal and brute force style, right, with the Jace package. Tricky's also on Mage Seekers as well, so I'm wondering if there is a world where Tricky's able to just float a lot of mana, not really be under a lot of pressure from a Targon deck, play a Shock Blast, get his Mage Seekers online, and just have big bodies that Lux and Felios can't stop.
Yeah. There is definitely the possibility. On the bright side, though, well, at least for Broken Ball, there are hushes in the list and stuff, too. So even with the big bodies and potentially big bodies with a good amount of keywords, there are ways to deal with them in the deck list. Also, is running the Sunburst too as well. You have Sunburst.
Yeah, and then the big thermo beams. Tricky wants to hold on to these to just like zap a Lux, but you also need a Mystic Shot or something to pop the barrier.
Yeah, Lux's barrier very helpful for allowing her to stick onto the board a little bit more, and stopping the thermo beam from just instantly destroying her. And the Shock Blast is going to go ahead and, wave its hands hello and take out a couple units. And Zoe ready to attack. Tricky does have the answer here, but not sure if he wants to use it or not.
When you're playing against Lux, the star chart is always a pretty big threat just because Crescent Strike and Equinox can really shut down a lot of stuff. Has to throw out the Ezreal emo, and there is no protection. So Tricky slowly working their way forward in the value aspect of the game. Thanks to that Shock Blast, you get the Mage Seeker Inciter on 4.
Also, something to note, that is the only Zoe in the deck, so he no longer has to worry about this star child leveling up and giving all of its friends keywords. So that's nice to get rid of, not having to worry about the extra value she makes as well from attacking the Nexus.
So here we go. The Sergeant going into battle. Again, just trading down the board. You can see that in these sort of value-oriented matchups, the players are playing very lightly. There's no developments there. You're keeping a lot of mana open. Seeing what Broken Ball does first is so important, so you know where to distribute your mana. And now that you've already attacked, the barrier on the Lux is minimized. You don't get that defensive wall. It would just be for the sake of getting Lux set up, just for the sake of, you know, am I going to Falling Comet next round to level her up and try to get Final Spark? And so the timing of trying to get this Lux safely into play is actually kind of off for Broken Ball this round.
Yeah, it's definitely a little bit tricky. And the hand itself is just in a really awkward spot for Broken Ball.
Oh no! He went for the lady. He got the Lady of Clouds. Tricky is hovering the Hextech Anomaly.
Get it. Get it.
This is a
Yeah.
card that, when it is created, and at the start of every round, it's going to transform into a different 6+ cost spell. So as the game goes on, and again, this is a matchup that's anticipated to go a very long time, we're going to see the full gamut of ridiculous options that Tricky is going to have access to.
Oh, I hope it finds us something good, something entertaining. But that's still such an awkward hand for Broken Ball. I mean, that's about it. That's the only thing that can really be played. There isn't really a way to level up Lux here very easily. I mean, at least the star shaping could give an elusive unit, but after that, it's awkward. And Tricky's hand, I mean, he has everything in the world to play with right now.
Yeah, I was really wondering if Tricky was going to go for a just a big thermo beam to try to zap the Lux, having that earlier read from the Zoe that there was no protective spell. And when we look at the hand, even though it looks like Broken Ball has a lot of cards, there's one of them's a For Demacia and there's 2 Dusk Petal Dust, so not a lot of options there.
Yeah, at least does have this Guiding Touch too in the future to potentially draw into something useful.
Broken Ball's hovering the Falling Comet onto the Jace, getting the Final Spark, and then just bullying into a very dominant position on board. Stand United from the Hextech Anomaly.
The clap too in the corner. Just oh, I love seeing the excitement. Oh, it feels good when you're the one doing it. Not Broken Ball, probably not too happy right now. Maybe we'll even see a tweet about that one.
Listen, I'm telling you, Hextech Anomaly has got to go. It's not okay, but here we look at this attack. I love this too. Now that Jace has a barrier, you can just swing in. This is a big call out versus that one of single combat in Broken Ball's list. Just getting another attack. The quick attack plus the barrier means you get to keep it against that. You still have your barrier against the Final Spark, but now Broken Ball has Lux and Aphelios.
Man, I just didn't think I would see Moon Boy after the nerfs, and in a tournament setting especially. I know he's slipped through a couple times, but I personally haven't got to cast it, so I get to see the Moon Boy in action.
Aphelios now with the Concerted Strike. This is going to be another Final Spark for Lux, and despite the shenanigans on Tricky's side, when it comes down to a Lux mirror, the fact that Broken Ball was able to play that Lux, get her leveled up, Tricky did not pull the trigger on the Thermogenic Beam to answer her right away, means she's already gotten massive value. If there's a second Lux, there's potentially a barrier to stop this beam, but I think Tricky has to go for it. The longer you leave this Lux up, you're just naturally going to fall further and further behind. Another pass.
Yeah, and really this is the only value Broken Ball has in his hand. Without this Lux, his hand is pretty much beyond useless. But because he's had this Lux to keep on driving power, it makes all the difference in the world.
And now, Tricky, again, having the 8-mana Thermo Beam does let you cover Sharp Sight at the very least. It doesn't cover Shield of Durand, though. And that is why, and that's what's making Tricky so nervous here. At the very least, you can play Mage Seeker, and Aphelios is phased into the Crescendum, so Petricite Broadwing is about to come down, just pulls this to the side, and you're going to take 7.
Yeah,
and even if you Thermogenic Beam to kill the Lux, you're still going to take 6 after being tapped out. Do you play your own Lux here?
Yeah, it's such a tough spot to be in. I mean, as you said, this Lux has just already gotten so much value, and ooh, very tough.
I guess if Broken Ball does go for the Crescendum here to try to push through a lot of damage with the Broadwing, we do have access to 4 mana Thermogenic Beam.
Yeah, I think
Broken Ball passes back. I love the measured response here.
Yeah, not getting, seeing that he has the board right now, and also too, if he loses any of his current tools, he's in trouble. He's in a lot of trouble if he were to lose this Lux or Aphelios, and saying, I'm just gonna play it a bit slow. I have good board control. I have ways to protect my board. It makes sense to go for it now. Ooh, and
yeah, the delay.
Yeah, the Shielded Doran was top decked. That was a top deck Shielded Doran that is making all the difference here. Something that Tricky had been playing around, decided I can no longer continue playing around this. And it is there as an answer as the top deck card. On the bright side, does have the level up Lux and does have the the final spark as well. We do see, well, there is the star shaping that will be able to answer this though if Broken Ball wants to save his Lux.
Oh my goodness, no! So again, Tricky was trying to set it up so that the Lux was in play before you cast that big Thermogenic Beam. So you get the final spark, and then you're trying to flip the board dominance back in your favor. Try to tip the scales. But now we've got Sharp Sight, not Sharp Sight, Star Shaping, and this Dusk Petal Dust. That'll be the 6th piece of mana to get another laser.
Ooh. And did get the Scourge in hand. I mean, card was buffed a bit ago where it has Overwhelm now, but that is a way to end the game, which Broken Ball didn't really have access to previously. Besides just chipping away with Lux lasers, but now it actually has a real threat in hand right now too to end this game.
Yep, going into 10 mana has the Scourge. 10 mana, 10/10. Also buffs your allies when it swings in. Tricky can only develop 1 unit to try to stop this. We have a single combat here. You're taking 11 damage of Overwhelm. You can use Mage Seeker Conservator to maybe swing into this Lux. But look, the AoE Overwhelm grant as well. It's just not enough. Mystic Shot maybe to tone down the Formidable. We've got Sharp Sight plus single combat.
Yeah, Sharp Sight, single combat, Mystic Shot. I mean, those are your options, and it looks like you have to do all of them if you want a chance of winning, which I don't even think, I mean, we don't do math, we're casters, but I don't think it's enough regardless, but that would be, I would just play it just to see.
Absolutely wild. We've seen both shades of Broken Ball's list now, where we have the dominant control from the Lux engine. We had Aphelios making a guest appearance, and then you can't ever count out that classic Targon win condition of Star Shaping into something ridiculous.
Yeah, nicely played by Broken Ball, being very patient, and unfortunately too, just Tricky could not deal with that Lux, and when he made the play to do it, needed the tempo from his own Lux, it just wasn't enough. Broken Ball had already got all that value from Lux. Multiple final sparks had been played and had just owned the board at that point, and there was not much that Tricky could do.
Yeah, when it comes to that Lux mirror match, getting it set up is the most important. And it looked like it was going to be pretty awkward for Broken Ball because you're playing Lux into a turn where the barrier is not relevant for defensive purposes. And there was that window of opportunity for Tricky to respond with a big Thermo Beam or something to clear her, but just a little bit too much hesitation, right? Respecting the Shield of Durand, respecting the Sharp Sights, things of that nature. just eventually allowed Broken Ball to have the answer when the time came. And now going into the next game, Tricky now on this Sivir Akshan, incredible mid-range toolbox versus the Feel the Mina deck from Broken Ball.
Oh, yes, the Feel the Mina deck is the deck that I wanted to see. I feel like against this mid-range deck that has a lot of pressure, especially with the rallies, it could have a tough time.
Akshan on turn 2 at the very least is what you want to see. Into the Vicuran Vagabond on turn 3 to discount this Palace. Tricky is doing, you know, exactly what this deck needs to do to hold up in this game. But we're jumping into the future Silverfuse. We don't have enough time to talk about the early game. We're jumping into Screeching Dragon versus Trundle.
Yes!
Sharp Sight on the dragon can threaten the Trundle here.
You know what? This is the way we should do it in the future. Sometimes these games in the early game drag out a bit, and we're getting right into the action.
I know, just get an idea of what the early game is going to look like based on the opening hands, and then just jump to the mid game.
Yeah, we understand exactly what's going on now. This is perfect.
But Trundle does go down, which is very important. Just a big repeated blocker with regeneration is something that a mid-range deck like this does not want to deal with. We've got the Warlord's Palace about to pop open here. And this is going to give Tricky that Relic of Power, right? That predict draw is so important for this deck, where you're able to find the final piece you need to tie the rest of your hand together.
Yes. Akshan, just an incredibly strong card, and being able to get the predict draw and just be able to find the piece that you need or the rally that you need, it gives you just about everything. And
Ooh.
Wow, this is a strong board. Instantly Will of Ionia onto that Cytherea. Don't want to give those dragons an extra, you know, +1/+1 each, plus Fearsome. You know, want to keep his Trundle alive, so I love just the instant, nope, you are not going to be attacking me with your Cytherea and Scary Dragons.
It is important to note that this Relic of Power is fleeting. You do need to make the choice now. I'm wondering if Tricky is considering the often underutilized give your units +1 attack. Try to threaten this second Trundle with it.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely would make a lot of sense here.
If your hand is good enough, I mean, didn't predict draw, just played the Cytherea, so maybe Tricky's hand is good enough.
Will we see it? Ooh, just pushing more damage instead.
Even more aggressive.
And the Absolver too.
So we get to take down the Trundle, and we're pushing 10 damage. Incredible. The issue becomes, however, that Tricky does not have burn, right? This is a very classical mid-range style. Needs to find a rally here. It must be in the hand already.
Yeah, and we'll be seeing these ice pillars here. You know, not really doing too much in the short term, but maybe they are just enough to like eke out, saving a little bit of extra health to allow for the combo. I mean, Broken Ball, as I mentioned earlier, these, you know, the flying manatees, I'm going to call them, they are able to pull the Feel the Rush, pulling a slow spell. Also have the option of, you know, when they pull a burst, it's either Catalyst or Three Sisters. Three Sisters could be a pretty big draw as well in some cases.
Mm-hmm.
But only options in hand, so I wouldn't be surprised if we were to see the Feel the Rush pull, but ooh, looks like we're going for a fast spell.
Looking for Palm. Yeah. Beautiful, beautiful. Looking at the board too, it's really unfortunate that Broken Ball doesn't have the It That Stares to just wipe the board here, but Scouter Fly doing a little bit of work, and Concussive Palm also going to continue to hold the fort alongside these pillars. Yeah, Tricky needs to go for the open attack, right? The pillars can't block. Fearsome. Yep. You just got to swing in. We get to pull the Scattered Pod with the Screeching Dragon. The pillar can still block Cytherea herself.
Yes, it can.
But with the right combination of buff spells, it could be the way to go.
Yeah. We don't know Tricky's hand, so it's hard to say if there, you know, is a way to present lethal here. But we assume that Broken Ball will be blocking with the scattered pod. I mean, a few buffs here could do it. 2 sharp sights, boom. But we do know the palms in hand, I suppose.
Oh, we've got the Absolver,
we do.
number 2. So now we've got the buff on Akshan and then Overwhelm on the Screeching Dragon. This is against a 5-1 attacker.
Oh, wow.
Concussive Palm off of the Scattered Pod is going to rescue here. Do we have 1 more damage worth of buffs? No. Broken Ball stabilizing at 1 HP, pulling a tricky special.
Does have the catalyst too, but I mean, a rally here, is that what we might be seeing?
Has the deny.
Does indeed have the deny.
Bright Steel Protector.
Alright.
Puts it on the dragon.
And wow, this Warlord's Horde is going to be going off very soon as well.
And then with the Sentinel, we get the Font of Power for even more draw, finding the final pieces to get 1 more damage on the Nexus.
I mean, I see 1 more damage to the Nexus in 1 person's hand.
Yeah, the ice shards are locked out. That is true. You have to go for the catalyst first.
Yeah, I mean, that is a good number of cards. Like, Broken Ball has so many cards in his hand, but looking at it, 4 of them are kind of dead to an extent.
Oh,
ooh.
The Scattered Pod has the read that there is no rally?
That's what it's looking like. Oh, and maybe either, I mean, the rally, I think, doesn't quite get lethal, and I think at this point, you have to have the lethal with it. And
Feel the rush comes through. Does Tricky run Rite of Negation in this build? There is 1 copy.
A single copy. Does he have it? I mean, if not, Broken Ball might just be able to run away with this.
We've got 20 damage worth of Overwhelm. We've got 10 more damage worth of Elusive. If the Rite of Negation is not there, this is going to be a lethal. Shield of Duran gonna pop the Palace.
Going to search for it, maybe. Oh, it's focus speed. Never mind.
Yeah.
It's focus speed. Yes, not burst speed. So can't even look for it here. Giant Gnar and Giant Trundle are here to play.
So at the very least, the Trundle and the Gnar are both not leveled up, so don't have to worry about the Overwhelm damage anymore. Just the Elusives. Font of Power can draw. Maybe we find a concerted strike here to take down one of these.
Yeah, there's no way to protect anything, so, you know, anything that is found to deal with Trundle or Gnar will go ahead and hit. And there is a... well, it looks like there is 2 concerted strikes. Oh, wait, no, sorry, that is for the other Demacia deck. Lots of Demacian decks. Oh, we will see the draw now. Bright Steel Protector.
Fount of Power into a barrier. So we're off to a good start. There's still 10 damage coming through from these Scattered Pods. Sharp Sight could help with that.
There are 2 concerted strikes in the list. There are no single combats. So there are a few ways.
Broken Ball passes.
I like the pass here. You know, they still have so much mana to work with, and if they burn all of that mana, you're alright with that, I feel like, in most cases. You have a full board, you have units that are able to deal with
we got a bunch of fearsome blockers now.
Yep.
Palm and Deny. So very smart with Broken Ball. Even though you've got the 10 damage on the table, you aren't using it yet because you know your opponent needs to play more cards to even out the potential threat on the board.
Ooh. So if you're taking out that ice pillar.
Instead of the pod, huh?
Yeah, not wanting anything to be pulled here. Once again, Broken Ball taking the pass. Not really wanting to, sending a Scattered Pod into a Sharp Sight wouldn't feel that great. Easy way to lose the game when you have 1 health.
I guess it also lets Cythria keep the barrier. Wow. So what's the attack? Just gonna open attack. 2 copies of Absolver have already been spent, so we don't have any more Overwhelm shenanigans from Tricky's list. Most versions of the Silver Auction, again, just run the 2.
Yep. His list also is running the 2.
And we've got it 6v5. But we do have the Concussive Palm. We can live this. Gonna trade down everything.
Yeah, deciding exactly what he wants to kill and what he wants to palm.
Yep, so there's the trade and the palm. A rally also taken off of the table by the entire board getting traded down like this.
Yeah, the Demacians and the Shurimans working together, but having a tough time against the Freljordians and the Ionians in this matchup. Palm doing a lot of work here, making sure that lethal isn't presented. Sharp Sight here to trade off the scattered pod, and there isn't any buffs in Broken Ball's hand to be able to deal with this, but he really doesn't care after this.
Yep, looks like the crisis is averted. Pokestick onto the Nexus, drawing more cards. All Broken Ball needs to find is It That Stares or minus Swiftfoot to completely take Tricky out of this game. This 1 HP on Broken Ball's Nexus might as well have 2 or 3 zeros after it. Getting this final swing after your opponent has stabilized like this is impossible without the Sivir keyword sharing, without the Absolver Overwhelm. There's no Recurrent Bruiser in this build to try to find the Trinket Trade, my goodness, the Lucky Find to get that keyword to try to find the lethal.
Yep, Overwhelm, such a strong keyword that often ends games, and Broken Ball going ahead and taking advantage of that by playing this Ice Pillar, giving us Trundle Overwhelm, so now Gnar and Trundle both have Overwhelm, and there's really no way of dealing with both of those units.
Wow, very, very well played. Tricky, who made it to the winners finals by taking a clutch game on 1 HP, is responded by Broken Ball doing the same. 1 HP and a dream, and we saw that Broken Ball was stone cold that whole time, was not worried about the top decks, was coldly and quietly calculating. There is no rally. I can play this second scattered pod. What a Chad.
Yeah, incredible hand reading. I mean, I felt like if you were to tell me the 4 cards in your opponent's hand, he would be able to name them.
I was worried when I saw the pod go down. Chat couldn't see it, but I put my hand around. I was like, "Oh no, the Golden Aegis!" But it was. You love to see games like that. Just somebody fighting from behind, and then eventually getting their win condition, even managing to sneak in the Feel the Rush against no right of negation, was just absolutely massive for Broken Ball to eventually close out that game. However, Tricky is just going to be going down to the lower bracket. He's not out of it yet. And so, if Tricky can take down the winner of Ultraman and Castman's next match, he'll get that second shot at a rematch versus Broken Ball. We're going to get to this action-packed match right when we get back from this slightly longer break, chat. So make sure that you go ahead and, get yourself a snack, get yourself a coffee or some water, and we will be right back and move through the second portion of Fight Night Legends EU. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fight Night Legends EU, brought to you by Giant Slayer and Wisdom. My name is Scarzig, joined on the desk by Silverfuse, and we're about to sort out the rest of the lower bracket. So how are you feeling about this a momentous occasion, Silverfuse? Again, very happy to have you on the desk finally.
Yeah, we've had just the most close games you can really think of today. Just people barely scraping by, surviving at 1 health and being able to turn it around. I mean, a lot of these decks have been pretty, like, fast decks that have been trying to go against these control lists, and the control lists are just barely been eking it out most of the time.
The control decks, we have a really nice mixture, right? It's not one of those weeks of Fight Night we get every once in a while where everybody is kind of thinking along the same lines, bringing the similar lineups. Even though we have a lot of mid-range variants, a lot of scouts, there's still a lot of sort of decks orbiting that and trying to attack the meta from different angles. But with that being said, we do need to take a closer look at Castman's lineup. A player who is certainly going for a more mid-range direct style, starting off with Bandletree, with the 2 copies of Yordles and Arms, right? This is sort of the modern, in vogue style of Bandletree, where you're relying more heavily on the Yordles and Arms as a truer win condition, and the Bandletree kind of just becomes a side idea and just a bonus win condition.
On top of that, oftentimes people feel the need to ban this too because of the Bandletree, and a lot of decks we've seen don't have a way to answer Bandletree besides, you know, killing before it actually goes off. So the slower decks, especially like, you know, the Field of Mina that we just saw, it can't deal with the Bandletree. So it's a pretty smart choice to bring just because a lot of people do feel the need to ban it.
Yeah, and I think that Castman certainly wants this deck to be banned so we can play the other 2 decks in the lineup. The second deck that Castman has brought is Scouts. This version, I think, is pretty standard. I do like the Shield Durand inclusion, and the Penitent Squire is also a really nice idea because Castman has gone a little bit more top end with a Cytherea the Bold and Triple Genevieve. You're trying to kind of outvalue and outdo other scouts list. Having the extra scout unit of Genevieve gives you that extra punch you might need to level up a Quinn or a Misfortune and truly swing the game. And I know that Castman has really been studying up this deck, has been learning from a lot of the other top tier scouts players across the EU scene. So if the draws come together, if it's not a hard counter matchup, I know that Castman can certainly navigate it correctly.
Yep, he's in a lot of his decks. It kind of seems like, or actually a good number of decks in general in the tournament. A lot of people are kind of enjoying going a little bit higher on the curve, such with things such as Cytherea. It's been something we've seen from a couple players now. And saying, you know what, there's a lot of value in the meta right now. A lot of people are playing these slower decks. I need something that can push through that damage. We've also seen Cytherea do well against Yordles and Arms decks that have a lot of 0 and 1 attack units and can't really block against Cytherea.
And hopefully that does pop out. But the third deck for Castman's lineup is the Akshan Sivir, another Demacian deck known for its ability to fight for board dominance and rally to convert to a victory. This one is certainly a much more above board style, right? We've got just the classic smattering of good units. We're on triple Merciless Hunter now for tempo, still on the Vicurin Bruiser, so you kind of have extra shots of getting that keyword sharing angle along with the Sivir. No Cataclysms in this deck, but 1 copy of Riposte, which can be a huge blow up when your opponent's trying to go for very specific blocks, and especially in the Demacian mirror matches.
Yeah, I haven't seen Riposte too often, but I mean, the barrier in a lot of these matchups is still pretty strong overall. I mean, whether it be defensive or offensively, with the 3 attack plus barrier.
Also going for triple Concerted Strike. A lot of the time these decks just cap out at 2 copies. I think that means that Castman is really looking with the Merciless Hunter, Broadwing, Concerted Strike to just get like really, really egregious tempo, like on round 3, 4, 5, and just convert and win from there. Not trying to go for any sort of long-term value with Sivir and the Dragons, just wants to hit hard and fast.
Yep. And Even,
But
yeah, Vicarian Vagabond is a 2 of 2. I mean, yeah, definitely looking to be pretty fast in this list overall. And then, as you said, the Bruiser, just giving that little bit of slight edge in some cases if you do need that extra keyword, whether it be for Sivir to close out the game or Challenger to move away a unit so you can swing for lethal. There's a few scenarios where it will be helpful, but overall, yeah, looking for a pretty fast game overall.
but this mid-range aggressive lineup again has very key weaknesses that a lot of players maybe have accounted for in the metagame, so your bans also need to be smart. We can take a closer look at Ultraman's list just to remind us of what that lineup is looking like. Ultraman, we saw a little bit earlier in the stream running the Caitlyn Ezreal, a deck that's really risen to prominence in recent times because of the flash bombs and the just plethora of removal allows you to deal with these boards that want to build up and go wide against you. Then you just have the classic Captain Farron and Tri-Beam as your value spikes and ways to truly close out the game. Against slower lists, you can always lean on Ezreal to get that final bit of burn.
Yeah, very much a callback to the, Draven Ezreal days. There was Draven Caitlyn for a bit, but since Draven's nerf, he's fallen out of favor quite a bit, and Ezreal is here to be able to close out the game in some cases. I personally have always liked Caitlyn in this deck. As we said, the flash bombs are able to pull out some pretty interesting wins, as well as dealing with the board, especially when they're low health units overall. A critical flash bomb can decide the game pretty quickly.
I've been playing against this deck on ladder from time to time, and let me tell you, when they play Caitlyn and they draw like double Peacemaker, it's curtains if you're playing a board-based deck. And even if you think you're going to have a really great attack, and a big open attack, then the flash bomb comes through and pings off a unit or damages a unit to set it up to die to Mystic Shot or Ravenous Flock. It's just a great multiple layered coverage that this list offers. But the next deck from Ultraman is the Ahri Lulu. This deck is sort of a new imagining of the classic style, right? Again, the point of the deck is you have Lulu buffing Ahri that can then swap with the Flame Chompers. So it's kind of like you're carrying that Lulu buff 2 places down the combat conga line. And basically by accentuating the power of Lulu, you are able to close out and bully games even harder, because Lulu Flame Chompers is a 2-card board combination that all decks live in fear of.
Yeah, and we got to see this deck in action at the very beginning of the day, where we saw it just take down Demacia with ease overall. It was just able to outvalue it, outtrade it. And of course, Twin Disciplines are, they can often outvalue a Sharp Sight, for instance, just because they have that one extra point of attack or health. And then, of course, the Palm, too, being able to stop some of the scout units. So we are able to see this deck in action, and I'm personally excited to see it in action again. Hopefully, there's a chance it gets banned, though.
I know. Windfair Hatchling is... I hated this card when it was meta, but now it's, like, nostalgic to see it hit the board.
I love seeing it again. I mean, it makes me feel a little bit better when it's not buffing a bunch of very powerful, elusive units that couldn't be dealt with in any way. But now that
we have more options to do it, it feels a bit more fair for sure.
Yes. Now it feels just about the way it should feel, where it kind of hits a couple decks, including this one, and we get to see it pop off every once in a while.
Ultraman's third deck as well, just to touch on it, is the Fizznar, Yordles and Arms. No Treasure Trash, though. Boo. But Ultraman's not the kind of player that I think would want to rely on a card like that in order to pull out wins. He's pretty confident in his ability to kind of just naturally build up those board advantages and close out without needing that final Hail Mary, right? Loping Telescope, Bomber Twins probably offer up enough random utility to build the rest of your game plan around. And we've seen repeatedly, or especially earlier in the broadcast, how devastating the Poro Cannons and Yordles and Arms can be for the amount of damage that they threaten.
Oh, yeah. Especially, 2 Yordles and Arms, which we haven't gotten to see yet, but hey, maybe this could be the game.
But yeah, again, that was both Castman and Ultraman's lineups. When you're playing Demacia into Bandle City, I think that you are just hoping that you can get early tempo. The Bandle City decks, even if they can't be aggressive and if they're forced into a defensive role in the matchup or based on how the card draws are going, they're more than happy to do so. They'll just block and block because they're just relying on drawing more cards, generating more cards, and they're going to naturally just run you into the ground. The only other deck I can think of off the top of my head that used to do that to you is like the old like Corinna control with like Elise and Brute Awakening. You remember those days
Oh
where
yeah, I
again they
remember
were
those
just generating
days.
tons of tokens and tons of tokens, and any sort of board-based deck would really struggle to push damage through, and Bandle City's kind of able to challenge that channel that old school energy.
Yeah, there really haven't been too many decks that have been able to outvalue through the board. I would say Karina Control is pretty close to that just because of the tokens it can make from the spiders, as you mentioned earlier. But of course, you know, had the end game of the Ladris plus Karina overall. But yeah, I would, I guess in some way, outside of Bandle City, yeah, it just doesn't really happen because I'm like, oh, you know, like Bandle Tree kind of does that, but that's Bandle City.
Yeah, exactly. The again, that side win condition essentially that all Bandle City decks kind of enjoy to some extent, the ability to just adopt in a defensive stance to outvalue these board-based lists is interesting, right? Because when Poppy was meta, Bandle City was just always ahead of you on board and was attacking you and not running out of threats, but now they never seem to run out of defense, and it's, you know, something to see for sure in the metagame. Because to be fair, if you are playing a Yorls and Arms deck and you're trading away your board and trading away your board, hoping for your opponent to run out of threats, if your opponent lands a big rally or a big Fort Demacia, they're still going to jump out ahead of you. And if your board is empty, your Yorls and Arms is a dead card. Oh, so we're just getting word that Ultraman's has a power outage. Ultraman's a whole city is actually out of power right now. We're going to go to a quick break to see if it's going to just be a quick on and off type deal, or if he can get his stream back up and running, and we'll get this final match ready to go. Castman is, of course, doing the sportsman-like thing and is very much willing to wait for his opponent to hopefully come back into the mix. So stay tuned, everybody. We're going to get this sorted out, and we'll be right back. Hello everyone and welcome back to Fight Night Legends EU. We just got back from a quick break because one of our competitors has a power outage. Ultraman is going to try to get switched over here. If the power doesn't come back on in the next few minutes, he's going to try to get switched over to a mobile device. We'll still be able to queue up and compete from a mobile device like a phone or something, and we'll figure out the spectating thing afterwards, right? I think our main concern, our main priority here is just to make sure that the competitors are able to play and compete. And again, Castman is waiting very patiently for this to get sorted out, but at the very least it gives him more chances to think about the lineups and the matchups in the ban, perhaps. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fight Night Legends EU. I want to thank everybody for your patience while we're getting these technical difficulties sorted out. Ultraman's city was without power, and we were trying to see if he was able to get switched over to a mobile device or find some way to still keep the tournament going. Unfortunately, we just got confirmation that Ultraman's town will be out of power for the next couple of hours. And of course, there is disruption to the mobile services there as well. So downloading Legends of Runeterra onto the phone because of the file sizes, etc., is not going to be feasible. So he will gracefully withdraw from the tournament, and Castman will be advancing in order to face Tricky in the losers finals. Tricky still trying to figure out a way to get that rematch versus Broken Ball, perhaps. But again, everything is very amicable. And Ultraman understands these things happen. But Castman, of course, was willing to wait as long as possible to see if there was a resolution, but just none could be found. But with that all being said, I do want to refresh our memories on Tricky's lineup. The players now, with this changeover, Tricky, of course, was not ready to play right away, was expecting one more round of rest. So we are going to quickly go over Tricky's lineup while we move towards that match's resolution. So this is Tricky's Toolbox Sivir Akshan. We've got 1 copy of Rite of Negation, 2 Concerted Strike, 2 Cataclysm, a Protege. We're on Screeching Dragon and Cythria instead of Bruiser. The best change I think I do like about this deck is, again, including the Preservarium, getting a little bit more natural card draw, and I love the Cythrias at the top end.
Yeah, as mentioned earlier, Cythria being able to get fearsome to things, push through the Yordles and Arms, and sometimes when the units in Yordles and Arms don't have more than 3 attack in a lot of cases, or even 3 attack itself. And then just knowing that you'll be playing against other Akshan Sivir decks that are going to be a little bit faster, and by taking it a little bit slower, oftentimes you're able to own the board that way, just being that slight bit slower. So I also really like the Screeching Dragon and Cythria in here as well.
Overall, just a fantastic list. You've got a wide variety of options. I guess one thing to point out is that there's only 2 copies of Golden Aegis. When you're putting in extra utility and extra powerful options, something does need to be cut to make room for those. So missing out on that rally could be a bit of a detriment. But the other decks in the lineup are also pretty spicy and still trying to go for this sort of toolboxy method. This Darkness list, 1 Otterpuss, 1 Missed Call, 1 copy of Wallop, a Transposition, a Ruination, a Group Shot. You just want to have an answer for every possibility at every stage of the game while still having that very powerful Darkness core. Ishtali Sentinel, Twisted Catalyzer, which has come under a lot of heat lately. It's just being too snowbally for a 2-drop. Also, how do you feel about the box in these Darkness lists? It's kind of come and gone. Do you think the meta is appropriate for it right now?
I think right now it is. With the number of Yordles and Arms decks, we've seen that their whole goal is to go wide, and the fact that the Yordles and Arms is a slow spell, this is a fast spell, that you can just cast that when they cast their Yordles and Arms. It has to be a blowout at times.
Conchologist also comes through, of course, to find even more of these utilitarian spells. The 1 copy of Missed Call is just so good if you can find the right chance for it. Modern variants of this deck will run 2 or even 3 copies because they just want to slam that Vagar on 4, and they don't care if you answer it because they're just going to bring it right back. And the game we did see with Tricky on Darkness, the Missed Call managed to hit a Rekindler and just completely doubled down on getting 2 Sennas in play, and it was just a nightmare to behold. And the 1 Ruination, great against scouts. You can just use it to wipe the board after that Yordles and Arms. So overall, I do like, again, this sort of flexible build for Darkness. And then finally, Tricky's 3rd deck is the Lux Jace. This list we've seen make some heroic comebacks, but overall, I think does struggle a little bit after we've seen it a couple more times. But I think if we can finally get the slower matchups that this deck is actually trying to target, play Assembly Line on turn 3, get your Mage Seeker curve and your Luxes coming down, I think that's really where the deck wants to shine.
Yep. seeing Lux a bit more in this tournament overall has been pretty nice. I mean, one is already in the championship matchup, you know, Broken Ball with the Lux Aphelios Zoe deck. So we could have another Lux versus Lux in the championship, depending on the way that this game goes. That's not something I expected to see today, but very welcome to.
A lot of people are certainly surprised. Lux has been a champion that a lot of players have been diehard fans of and have advocated for as a very powerful card. She saw some mild play way back in like the Lady of Clouds meta, where sometimes Shyvana would go into that deck, sometimes it was Lux in order to just come through as a big beater. We saw Lux come through in like Grand Plaza decks way back in the day. So she's kind of always been just big unit with barrier, and now that we have more spells and more options for her to level up quickly and keep getting multiple final sparks, she's really starting to shine, pun definitely intended. To be honest, the big thing I'm looking forward to out of this deck is I want to see Albus Ferris come down. This is a card with a very powerful ability where when he attacks, he can deal direct damage to the Nexus, and that scales with how many expensive spells you've played over the course of the game. And as always, the Ferris Financier shenanigans. And
yeah, so certainly, like, I've seen Albus Ferros like in decks before, but I haven't really seen him shine yet, and that's something that I personally would love to see.
It's just a big 7-drop. He does draw your Jace, which is really important. If he's leveled up, you're able to get Jace into play for that acceleration gate, doubling up on Shock Blast, or Assembly Line can be very huge. And we want these big combo turns to really come through. But we are getting word now that the players are matched up. They're ready to get into the pick and ban soon. Once more, I do want to thank all the viewers for their patience as we got this lower bracket sorted out, but we've got some action-packed matches just on the horizon. So jumping in right now, Tricky versus Castman. And what do you think the bans are going to be here, Silverfuse?
Ooh, it's quite tricky. I'm not even sure where to start on these two. I mean, probably the Bandle Tree, because there's 2 control decks. So yeah, Bandle Tree definitely needs to be out. And the Auction Sliver makes sense on the other end as well, just because you already know you're gonna have to play against 2 control list. You're okay with that. But yeah, the Bandle Tree had to go when you have the Jace Lux and the Darkness deck. Neither of those can deal with that very well.
Yeah, Darkness versus Bandle Tree, one of the most infamously lopsided matchups in the entire game. But getting into the game, we've got Scouts versus Lux Jace, and we saw this before, where Tricky was able to stabilize at 1 HP, and Castman missed out on that second copy of Misfortune to deal that one final piece of burn. We've got a great hand, it looks like. A 1-drop into a couple 2-drops. As we move further and further throughout the game, we have the assembly line as well. No 1-drop from Castman means Forge Chief gets to strike, get that extra piece of mana floated, and now we've got assembly line on turn 3.
Yeah, being able to strike with that, no trade included, is so nice. And then we'll probably even get some additional value here if it isn't forced to block. And getting the Forge Workers ready, being able to block so much easier by owning this board a bit more. It is looking really good start for Tricky here. And once again, no attack from the Misfortune. You know, it just gets chump blocked out a bit and it goes down to 1 health. It's not something you really want to have. However, Tricky having a 4-3 challenger ready to answer, everything just going to plan for him.
So the pass there probably says, okay, I have the sharp side, I have some protection for this Misfortune. Castman is a player that has repeatedly valued the protecting the Misfortune, trying to have that win condition come through. When you're against a deck like this that can kind of fight you for the board in the early mid game, you have to shift gears and try to go for a wide development into a 4 Demacia or a rally to close out. Ranger's Resolve is the card of choice.
Yeah, and Tricky playing around that too by not attacking with his 2-1 as well. A very heads-up play by him.
Fleet Feather Tracker comes through at the end of the game, end of the round, and Island Navigator also shoring this up. Shock Blast is the response. So Misfortune's level up will be denied. I think the Sculptor did get a decent amount of value before it was answered. It was able to stick around this time. We've seen Sculptors repeatedly just sniped by Mystic shots. But now we've got a Challenger and some Scouts to, again, maybe try to force through some damage, try to get Tricky to trade this board down.
Also important to note that when Jace is drawn, Jace is already leveled, so he comes down as a 5/5 with Quick Attack or Challenger.
And we get that Acceleration Gate. If Castman can't force Tricky to get rid of these units off of the board, if they get boosted by the Acceleration Gate, it is going to be over for this matchup. What a fantastic opening. Forge Chief getting that extra mana refunded so you can play the assembly line to get the 3/3s to keep blocking out. And there's another Shock Blast in hand. This is not looking good for Castman here in game one.
Yep, at least does have the Sharp Sight here to just extend this value a little bit more, since there's only so many cards left to work with, and this is what we've seen with the Scouts just falling a bit short in a lot of cases. I mean, Tricky's still sitting here at 20 HP and plenty of resources to work with as well.
Lux off the top. If Tricky is saving the Lux here, I do like this simply because you want to save that big unit with Barrier for a more defensive turn. When you're swinging in like this, playing the Persuader with Challenger means that you're keeping your opponent from developing a potential Misfortune or a Quinn, and it's just going to go to work here.
Yep, and there is that Misfortune.
Oh, into the other second Shark Blast. Catches the second Misfortune. Catches the Petricite Broadwing. We've only got the Burgeoning Sentinel now.
And we know there's no Sharp Sight in hand as well, too. That's a lot of info for Tricky there, seeing that, I mean, no Rangers Resolve, no Sharp Sight. Now there's a Sharp Sight in hand from the top deck, but regardless, it is really, really tough spot to be in for Castman here.
Yeah, the assembly line, the double Shock Blast, the Rangers Resolve was spent way earlier to protect the first Misfortune, but we don't have it to offset the Shock Blast damage. That's one thing that you're always worried about in matchups like this, and this is just going to be another full trade. And now we have Lux to stabilize against this second Scout attack with the Barrier. Tricky just waiting for the perfect time to make full use of Lux's defensive potential. And as you said, Silverfuse, we've got Jace coming through as a 5/5 with Quick Attack.
And Jace is ready to put down this gate, level up Lux, and so many keywords. This turn is just incredibly powerful and will likely just be the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, this is going to get doubled up. We've got 4 3/3s being summoned, fill the entire board.
Oh, there's lots of ways to do this too. It's a lot of fun. You can take out the unit, you can create a bunch of 3/3s, you can give yourself some keywords.
I have to ask if you know the interaction. If you double Thermogenic Beam, the first one does full damage and the second one deals 0?
I'm not quite sure.
Or if it picks its it
copies
damage
itself
from when it's on the
start.
stack.
I feel like it would keep its damage from the stack, but I'm not quite sure.
We're just playing dumb. It's all just a trivia question for the chat. Type type your answer. We're gonna be quizzing you later, chat. But Final Spark also coming through again against this Misfortune. We have the Sharp Sight. She's trying to do her best. Fortunately, with the Barrier, with Misfortune's help, we are able to take down Lux at the very least.
But still an attack token on Tricky's side. Despite taking down the Lux, it's just too much to deal with.
So here we go. Even though Lux goes down, Castman completely out of cards. Final Spark removes the Genevieve, and then we have the lethal presented with Jace and the manly Forge Workers.
Going for the perfect lethal.
And so that is game one, going over to Tricky. Again, when you're playing scouts, when you're playing any Demacia deck, when you go into a Demacia opponent that has more value, bigger top end than you, they usually do come out on top unless you get some really, really disgusting sequence. And we've all seen it, right? You know, they play Sculptor into Misfortune, then they have double Sharp Sight to protect the Misfortune into a rally. She levels up, and you're just like, oh no. But the Forge Chief on turn 1, so clean.
Oh yeah,
Castman
everything went Tricky's way in that game. That is the kind of hand that you would hand pick if you had the option.
And versus Darkness, things can also go pretty south. This is a list that has the potential to develop a lot of early game pressure with just Conchologist, Dark Bulb Acolyte, Twisted Catalyzer. You're doing a lot of work there, just blocking and blocking and blocking until you start to scale up your Darkness and suddenly have 1 or 2 mana to just answer all the big Screeching Dragons. You have your Pokey Sticks and whatnot to pop Sivir Spell Shields that you don't get that keyword sharing the way you want it. And it's going to be a tall order once again for Castman to get a dominant stance. This is a build of Sivir Auction that's designed to be a lot more tempo oriented and a lot more aggressive. Tricky keeping Vhagar in the opening hand, but doesn't have a 1-drop, is also holding the Dark Bulb Acolyte here.
Yeah, in most cases I would say that the hand looks really great for Castman, except being a little bit more aggro, not finding a 1-drop and just being able to push that little extra damage. It does make a big difference over time when you are doing, you know, this faster paced deck that you said overall, you know, not really running the top end that some of these other Auction Sivir decks are running.
I do like that Castman took the damage from the Acolyte, allows you to get a free swing back with the Auction, accelerating this Warlord's Palace.
Yeah, very important piece. Especially when you have a little bit of a slower start than you wanted to. But Tricky forgetting that he had a Withering Wail in the deck? Is that what's happening there? There was a response there of like, wait, why is this card in here? Or maybe he wasn't quite happy to see that being drawn.
And the Vhagar development being punished a little bit by the Sivir here, right? Very big tempo swing. Vile Feast at the very least pops the spell shield. If Vhagar can stay alive here, there is no single combat in Castman's build. We have 3 copies of Concerted Strike, no Cataclysm either. He wants to be in a position of I'm hitting you really hard and I'm forcing you to block.
Yeah, in this case, the Cataclysm would have been really strong, but, you know, of course, Tricky was feeling pretty good playing the Vhagar on 4 because knowing that Castman doesn't have a ton of ways to interact with it.
So we're popping Sivir Spell Shield. We get a 1/1 blocker to shore up against an open attack. This opens up a path for this Darkness to maybe be cast to take down the Sivir. You're forcing another card from Castman if they want to protect the Sivir. They've already tapped down, so they can't play a fresh one if she does go down. Oh, and Merciless Hunter! What a disaster! Just gonna pull this Vhagar to the side here so that Sivir can get that clean kill. The Broadwing can maybe pick something else up.
Yeah, it puts Tricky here in an awkward spot because you don't want your Vhagar to die, but you don't want to spend a Vengeance on it either. You're losing a lot of tempo, and the board is just too full to really deal with if you spend a bunch of mana doing that. So it looks like it might just be doing 3 to the Sivir here to avoid some of that incoming damage.
Gonna try to kill the Sivir. This is gonna get scooped up by Sharp Sight into a big swing. And once you've forced Darkness to trade away their board like this, and your entire board is also alive, it is a very tall order to keep in the game. From this position, Sivir is up. We've got fearsome attackers coming in, and Golden Aegis now to rally to double down on this tempo advantage. Castman's list is doing exactly what it is built to do.
Yep, it's going all according to plan. Auction even getting an extra hit in there too, just getting that Warlords just a little bit lower, and of course being able to predict into the needed card to finish off the game.
Trying to go for the,
Ooh.
what is that, a 33% chance?
Yeah,
But
I was gonna say one of them would be a spider potential too, a spiderling. So that would
have
be
2 shots of getting a another darkness at the very least. At this From this position, I think the play is probably to get the robe maker down. That way, when you're starting to get more darkness out of your deck, they're cheaper, and you're able to start, you know, kind of just sniping the opponent without having to give up so much mana. If Golden Aegis comes through, we do have Vengeance versus the Sivir.
Yes.
After you tap down with the Robe Maker, I think the rally looks pretty free here.
The rally is looking really, really good here. I mean, only 3 mana to work with. I mean, you can recreate the miscall and recreate something, but with only 3 mana, there's not much to be done here.
This is also going to level the Akshan. So then we get to rally. We get to get a 3/3 with quick attack and barrier. We get a nice predict draw to get another card that could help. Maybe a burst speed sandstone charger summon.
5 damage in this board is not looking too bad.
Yeah, because the +1 attack doesn't matter because of the double Broadwing play. And we saw Caspin opt for this a little bit earlier, if I'm not mistaken, getting the Sandstone Charger for more aggression. We saw Tricky also take this line previously.
And Sivir should be leveling here too. I think. Maybe not. I think it was 18 out of 30, so maybe not quite yet.
Yeah, she's going to level at some point during this combat. But if it happens in the right sequence, maybe you are able to put quick attack on these Broadwings.
That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I don't have a number for Sivir, but yeah, we're able to keep the Broadwings alive as well.
Yeah.
And Sivir Akshan claims another victim. This is going to clear the board, and then it sets up for Tricky to simply pass into another massive swing from Castman. The only answer here is second Pokestick for this Broadwing, Vengeance. But even then, you're far enough behind that you realistically can't come back into this game unless the Ruination?
I mean, that would mean that there'd be no open attack here, though, which I feel like there's
1 mana short.
Mana.
If you held that Pokestick from the last round, actually, if you didn't, you wouldn't have drawn into the Ruination. So you just take your luck.
The open attack would spell doom every single time.
Yeah.
Even now, the open attack is pretty brutal here. I mean, even then, there's the Vengeance, but
and because there's no mana for Ruination, Caspin is developing a little bit more. Because you have the Broadwing, you don't have to worry about like Ishtali's Sentinel from here. You always just pull it to the bottom of combat.
Yep, just securing it. Making sure to get all that damage through.
We do have Vengeance for the Sivir. But any of these units connecting with the Nexus is going to be lethal. We do have Withering Wail, but that is certainly not enough. So Caspin able to take game number 2 with this tempo Sivir Akshan. I feel like if I were to go back in time, the deck sort of started out this way. And as the deck was nerfed and toned down, it sort of became more of a value mid-range. So it's interesting that Caspin was able to identify that this tempo idea and this build can still take advantage of certain matchups in the metagame.
Yeah, indeed so. Really solid opening hand overall. You know, missed out on the 1-drop, but was able to curve out pretty hard after that. Of course, hit the Golden Aegis as well. And then the Darkness deck had an okay start as well, but then it just kind of fell off after that.
Yeah, we hit the Vagar, but then it went down immediately. We didn't get any other Darkness generators to take advantage of the Stilted Robe Maker and the boosted damage from the catalyzers. So this is one thing that we do have to remember about Darkness. It's been a very popular deck recently. It started out as kind of this kind of hard to play effectively underdog sort of list, but we do have to remember that like any deck with this level of synergy, you can get poor draws. But now Tricky is like, okay, I cashed in all the bad RNG in the last game. I've got my forbidden double catalyzer draw.
Oh no. And two, I feel like overall Casman's, struggled a little bit with this scouts list overall. It's been the one that's kind of been holding him back a bit. However, this start though is incredible, and it could do a lot here. The double sculptor, misfortune, and then the island navigator too. This could be a lot of value that might just be able to deal with this double catalyzer board.
Plays the misfortune, wants to get the attack here, wants to start leveling up. Every time that Casman has gone for this line, trying to level up the misfortune to get that power spike, it just hasn't come to fruition. The question now, attacks with the sculptor, wants to trade away this catalyzer while there isn't like a missed call in play or something for it. Repeatedly Casman has kind of given up on these attacks, right? Has gotten bullied out of this turn 3 swing, and delaying the misfortune just gives Tricky more time. I guess if you hit with the catalyzer, if there was like a Dark Bulb Acolyte, then misfortune goes down. So by delaying the catalyzer, maybe you find a better idea of how to respond.
Yeah, turn 3 and turn 4 for Casman have just been pretty brutal, where, as you said, just bullied out of being able to attack the way that he wants to. And I feel you said there's a few rare cases on scouts where, it ends up working out, but generally that's not the direction the deck wants to go. And I feel like we've definitely been feeling that on the couple games that we've seen where Casman's been bullied out of his early attacks.
I think just relying on the sculptor and snowballing the game is probably where you want to go, because the way scouts loses, it's just getting their board value traded down, and the extra HP carrying you through is going to be so important. We have a nice dip in tempo here with Vhagar set up, but no way to get the darkness set. Do we just swing on this thing? Sharp sight means that Vhagar, whatever it blocks, will get scooped. You're only worried about the one copy of Miss Call in Tricky's deck potentially. But with double sculptor, Island Navigator is too juicy to pass up.
Oh yeah, I could never pass it up. A 2/6 with Scout, yes, it only has 2 attack, but 6 health is a lot to deal with, even for the catalyzer, or with the double catalyzers being hit, because you don't want to use your darkness on a 2/6, at least at the start. There's just more valuable targets. The sculptors will continue to get value. Misfortune, of course, is getting value. It is a lot of value on the board for this Scouts deck.
And just a big wide swing. Again, now that you've got these tankier Scout units that can keep slugging on the opponent, getting this damage around the sides. We've got Vanguard Sergeant about to put a win condition in the hand. The work needs to be done to force Tricky to basically have an empty board. The same thing we saw in game 2.
Yeah, I really like not taking the Scout attack here too, just because Tricky only has 2 units, and one of them is incredibly valuable, the Vhagar. So saying, I'm going to get a lot of damage or put damage onto your Vhagar, rather than letting you develop like a Conchologist here that can just chump block. And even then, it's still an awkward spot for the Darkness deck, because you don't want to lose your entire board. But I just really like the pressure that Casman's putting on with this attack.
And you can't block with the Vhagar because of Sharp Sight. Every single trade potentially here for you is bad. And if you're opening up, if you're holding Missed Call open, then you aren't using your Darkness or your Pokey Stick to try to fudge the numbers here. So I think you take this, go down to 10. You have Darkness to stabilize the match even further. Dark Bulb Acolyte, maybe get you another Darkness. It's going to be close. Tricky's made some heroic comebacks before, but Darkness against Tempo is, again, one of those very tall orders. The Missed Call.
Yeah, that could be something that changes this game around. This Vhagar doesn't really have any protection, so the Missed Call being able to bring him back could just be a game changer in some cases.
There's Vanguard Sergeant. Darkness is actually boosted all the way up to 6. After
Yeah.
the double catalyzer draw and this Vhagar surviving, we can respond with a lot of stuff, but actually opts to take down the Sculptor.
But enough of her.
Too much HP being added into the equation here. Dark Bulb Acolyte can bring out another copy of the darkness for another response here.
And this misfortune is gone. There's no access to a double sharp sight here to be able to save her. I mean, a 6 mana, you know, deal 6 damage at 2 mana on turn 6 is pretty powerful.
And now Vhagar levels up. Grand Overseer, get in the mech, get in the robot, Vhagar. It's time to start burning. But from 20 HP, it means that Vhagar just needs to start fight. Oh no! Event Horizon! He's going to make it happen!
Oh no! It's devastating. The sharp sights can do a little bit here though.
So the way
You
Event
have to
Horizon
use
works is
them.
it stuns the main target and then stuns everything else with 2 or less power.
You
So
have
by
to
this
use
going,
two sharp sights.
you have to preemptively sharp sight so that your units don't get stunned by the Event Horizon.
Yep. So of course, the scout, you know, the 2/6 scout, and then I assume the other scout will also be getting it just because you get the double attack. It's not the way you want to use them, but this still helps a lot. I mean, you're stopping 11 attack from swinging at you right now.
And Vhagar still has 2 mana for this Giga Darkness 7 attack. You chump and slay. What a game 3 for Darkness to try to pull this through. But Tricky doesn't go for the Darkness, just goes for another blocker.
Wow,
And-
that is what a top deck. It just makes all the
Holy
difference in the world right now.
moly. Is holding the Darkness in the hand. This is going to stack up. Going all the way down to 5.
Is this rally going to be able to be enough though?
If we go for
Ooh.
Darkness here to clear the Vanguard Sergeant, then Golden Aegis comes through. Comboed with the Island Navigator. It could be enough damage around the sides.
Yeah, it is. It's tough. I mean, this Withering Whale just giving a little bit of extra heal.
Because Darkness,
definitely helps.
because Vhagar leveled up, he would have created another Darkness at the start of the round.
A tough spot to be in. Just looking to potentially just draw here. Ooh, that's a little bit scary. I mean, Rally's looking even stronger now.
Robemaker, not the draw that Tricky was hoping for. Golden Aegis comes through. Now we don't have Vile Feast to pop that barrier to set up for Darkness to clear this scout. Robemaker comes through. 1 mana, deal 7. Still going to be good, but more blocking needs to happen. Castman maybe has an open move to go for the Island Navigator.
Ooh.
Is Castman actually going to pull this out?
It looks like he might be. I mean, what are you gonna do on Tricky's side? The double Island Navigator.
You can only answer one thing with Darkness. That's the weakness.
Yup.
I think maybe Tricky was hoping for Pokey into Sentinel, so you could deal like double Darkness to the Nexus for a big burn.
As well as the healing too. Yup, and Castman is going to go ahead and take away this game.
Wow, what a game. It looked like Castman was just able to bully into a position. A couple just clutch top decks put it right back into Tricky's court, but wasn't able to convert. There was the Vile Feast development, trying to have a bit of an extra blocker there, but then tapped down, didn't have the mana for that Darkness. You miss out on that freebie generation from the Vhagar to have an extra means to just keep sniping the board down and keep things narrow.
Yeah, that game. I'm still thinking about I mean, it felt like it could have gone either way over and over and over again, and I'm just still a bit shocked.
When you're playing a deck like that is under so much pressure, right? Like from the Silver Auction, this crazy tempo deck, and then you're against scouts, decks that if you misplay, suddenly you're incredibly far behind, and just coming back from being so far behind, you kind of feel like your job is done just because you came back. But then you have to start thinking about, how do I convert to a win? And if you're stuck in that mindset of, oh, I'm just focused on survival, I'm focused on playing around my opponent's outs and win conditions and not about how you are going to win, you might miss those lines. But I mean, Tricky going all the way here to the losers finals is a very, very powerful achievement, I think. So big shout out to him, and Castman able to clutch it out with a very, very cracked draw 2 games in a row.
Yep. Just yeah.
But we're both just flabbergasted, you can tell. These games, I mean, over and over again today have been so clutch, have been so back and forth. We haven't really seen a lot of dead matchups. But with that being said, we now have our finalists locked in to go up against Broken Ball. So we will see you all when we get back from this quick break. Stay tuned. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fight Night Legends EU, brought to you by Wisdom and Giant Slayer. My name is Scarzig, and I'm joined on the desk by Silverfuse. We're about to get into the grand finals. How you feeling, Silverfuse?
I'm so excited. We have seen just such great games, and I just absolutely love Broken Ball's lineup. I think he read the meta extremely well, building a pretty anti-Demacia lineup.
Broken Ball and Castman are our two grand finalists. Castman coming out of the losers bracket, and Broken Ball from Italy re-cementing himself as one of the top players in Europe. He's known for identifying these sort of pet builds, optimizing them, learning the ins and outs, and then just through sometimes sheer force making them meta. And of course, the signature Lulu Jinx is his deck of choice. And Castman coming with a very, very tempo-oriented Demacia lineup. We've seen the meta shift where a lot of Demacia decks want to go bigger and go greedier in order to beat the mirror matches. But Castman is sort of popping that bubble and resetting things to go even more aggressive instead. With that, though, Broken Ball, as you said, has kind of lined up this anti-Demacia lineup, this anti-Demacia flavor. And I think that overall, that's a really strong call for the metagame. A lot of decks, even if they aren't Demacia, are still fighting for the board. If you're an anti-board based deck or lineup, you're not only just beating the Sivir Akshans and the Scouts, you're beating things like Yorls and Arms, you're beating Lurk, you're beating maybe even some of these Overwhelm lists that are still just trying to hit you. There's so many new decks that are just trying to go on board, hit you with Overwhelm damage or Elusives or Rally. And now that they aren't relying on burn to finish these games, these defensive value decks that can't necessarily heal a lot can very much exist and bully people in this metagame.
Yep. And I personally, I love seeing the attacking. I love seeing just, not just seeing decimates to kill people. I find that pretty boring myself. So I'm very excited to see these board-based matchups. And I mean, going into these bans, I mean, we both know that Bandletree deck, I saw it was his favorite list. That thing's getting banned very quickly by Broken Ball.
Yeah, Castman has not had a chance to play the Bandletree at all. When going into this match, I thought that it was going to be basically the strategy. You bring the Bandletree as a ban magnet, and you get to play the other two decks that you really want to pilot. Because we know that Castman has been putting in tons of reps with Scouts. It's a deck that has this reputation of, oh, you play Misfortune on 3 and then you rally and you win. But as we've seen at the highest levels of EU play, the players know this matchup. They've been playing against it for years. And of course, throughout this meta game that we've been in, Scouts has, I think, outside of when Scouts first became a deck, probably the longest stretch of this list actually being like a heavy hitter in the meta game, if I'm remembering correctly. But
that sounds right to me.
That usually it like the meta shifts, Scouts is godlike, and it's like, oh my god, it has a 58% win rate and everybody's getting bullied, and then the meta shifts against Scouts and it goes away. And this is the first time that the meta has shifted against Scouts, but it still has enough just raw power and enough good matchups just from other slower decks that it's still hanging on. And so the very dedicated Scout players are pushing the limits of how well this deck can perform in the tournaments, and Castman piloting it all the way to the grand finals certainly shows us, that the deck is still a force to be reckoned with. Kitty.
Go ahead and move Ahri away.
We got a special guest. But thank you very much for that. The players are going to be jumping into the pick and ban phase here pretty soon. But overall, how do you feel about the matchup? You think that Bandletree is going to be the ban for Broken Ball, but what do you think that Castman is going to ban from Broken Ball's lineup? He's got Field of Mina, he's got his Lulu deck.
Probably the Lulu deck.
And then what was Broken Ball's third? Oh yeah, the Lux of Felios. Ooh, man.
That one's tough too. I feel like it will be the Lulu deck. I think he wants to ban the Lux, Aphelios, and the Lulu deck. But I think the Lulu deck makes a lot of sense here because that one's more likely to kind of steal wins from him. But gosh, the Lux Aphelios is tough for the scouts to deal with too.
The game we did see from the Field of Mina deck, it was very close, right? Broken Ball went down to 1 HP versus Tricky in the winners finals. So there perhaps is a big enough weakness there that if you're playing something even more aggressive, if Broken Ball doesn't get the right draws, you could just close out the game before any of those late game threats come online. So if Castman is thinking along those lines, then maybe the Bandle City does get banned. Maybe the Lux Aphelios for sure is probably the most dangerous, where if you get the Aphelios down, suddenly you have Calibrum and Gravitum that are controlling the board, or just Crescendum to pull Broadwings, which are just fantastic attackers and blockers. There's no way for a scout deck to realistically deal with a Lux. She's just going to sit there, chump block, and then laser everything down. That's probably the deck that I would be the most scared to face.
Yeah, it could definitely make sense to ban that one just because, yeah, control Demacia against the scouts, yeah, you don't really have a chance. You really don't. And as you said, there isn't really any ways for it to deal with Lux, and we've seen the value that Lux has brought to multiple of these games where she is more or less single-handedly won games with the, the back of these 6-cost cards.
Oh, instant ban on the Bandle Tree. And the Lulu Fizz is actually banned. So this is interesting.
The call.
Going against the slower decks, Castman is going to say, okay, my decks are tempo, my decks will rally. I'm going to end the game before you stabilize, not giving the opportunity for that comfort Lulu deck to be in Broken Ball's hands. Oh, but we've got early game.
Well, this is exactly the matchup we were talking about. The Demacia, that's a bit quicker, the scouts, and then we have the more controlled Demacia that kind of preys onto the scout deck overall, and a pretty good opener for Broken Ball too.
Yeah, Zoe on turn 1 with the attack token means we can squeeze in a super cool star chart to get a crescent strike. That'll shut down a big attack later in the game. Meanwhile, Castman has the Sculptor on 2, into the Broadwing, into the Mirai Warden, and a Rally. If Broken Ball's hand wasn't also full of units, this would be a recipe for success.
Oh, for sure. I mean, both players have pretty strong hands overall. I do, already looking at this hand, Castman really does need to draw into something that gives him more value in the late game, because right now, the units in his hand are not going to be enough to push through the damage needed.
Ironically, I think this is the first time that Castman has not had misfortune on turn 3.
I think that's correct. Yeah, because I mean, earlier game, I think we seen it on 3 every time, and one time we even saw 2 misfortunes on a hand by turn 3. So
we have one more shot at drawing it. We aren't attacking on turn 3 at the very least, so this gives you an off turn, maybe set up your Sculptor. And again, like as we said earlier, chat, Castman's been putting in a lot of training with Scouts and Sivir Akshan. These mid-range Demacia decks are, we can see again, when your opponent knows the matchup, when they're bringing a deck that's designed to kind of beat you, you have to pull out all the stops and really flex your knowledge of the list and of the matchup. Oh no! we get the Dreg Dredger just throwing away a few cards. Was that? I think I saw a Golden Aegis, and was that 2 Sharp Sights?
I missed it, but the Sad Poro, I wouldn't be surprised if that's exactly what got discarded.
That gives so much information to Broken Ball now about what you need to respect and what you need to play around.
Oh yeah, it never feels good to see a toss happen, and it's things that you wanted to have in your hand. Of course, the information being really important too. If it's just a couple units that you like another Mirai Warden or something, it's whatever. But when it's combat tricks and rallies, those are the things you don't want to see tossed. Even if it's at the bottom of your deck, giving your opponent the information is the more important part.
Mm-hmm. And Ranger's Resolve does come through here, saving the Broadwings. and having this wide board. We've got Genevieve Elmhart ready to go, potentially here in a couple rounds with the attack token and the Golden Aegis. You can float a ton of mana here. Shield of Durand is also a fantastic pickup. What's the target for the warrior here? Oh, just passes. Broken Ball not going to go into combat.
That pass gives a lot of information about Castman's hand.
So Genevieve comes down, buffing this board, making the Petrocyte Broadwings back into threats. They're kind of just flame chompers at this point. Pull the blockers to the side and let me threaten with this 14 damage exact lethal. Broken Ball needs to heal or play an attacker. Shield of Durand does not cover the Concerted Strike right now.
Ooh.
For Demacia? No,
that wasn't what I was expecting.
That's got to be a he needs to crunch the numbers here, right? 5.
Oh yeah.
Did I miscount? It's 14, yeah?
I did not count at all. But I feel like For Demacia was...
He probably accidentally dragged the For Demacia thinking it was Sunburst.
That makes sense. That would feel so awful to lose a game that way. I was gonna say, yeah, this is a lot of damage coming through, and with Shield Durand, with a Formidable, you could give yourself even more damage, so... Oh yeah, that For Demacia would have been brutal.
Yeah, so pretty clutch. Don't get the extra challenger from the Genevieve. We're still pushing through a pretty healthy amount of damage here. There's a second Genevieve in the hand. Now that you've kind of done your work, you've dealt massive amounts of damage to the opponent. You only need 1 or 2 more of your attackers to slip around the sides. Shield of Durand allowing you to take down the warrior as well. Broken Ball left with all spells in the hand.
I was gonna say, where did his units go? No Lux here to, start generating us value like it has been in the past. A unit into potentially another unit here. Maybe we can see something from the Solari Priestess.
Could get a Traveler. What's the pickup?
It is the Traveler.
Beautiful. So we get another blocker here for this upcoming swing. We have Genevieve with a potential open attack with Challenger. And then we'd be pushing through 4 damage and Sharp Sight for a lethal.
Yeah, a lot of stuff to play with here.
We also have the Golden Aegis ready to go. And so will Castman put the lethal on the stack now? Are you going to wait for the Golden Aegis to come through?
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird spot considering Castman does have some information here. He did get to see, the unit into unit, kind of tipping you off a bit that maybe Broken Ball doesn't have that many units. So probably is expecting the Hush here, or in this case, it's just a Guiding Touch, saving the Hush for later. Makes sense as well.
Taps
and does have the star shaping. Yeah, there's a lot of ways this can go, but we're back to the same place we found ourselves at so many times today, where there's 1 health control player struggling to win against Scouts, just trying to live to be able to take it out, while Scouts is low on units or cards available to them, also just trying to eke out that little extra damage. As you highlighted earlier, no burn in these lists. So they are doing their best to just push damage through.
All right. Golden Aegis comes through. And now Broken Ball has the gift from Zoe. The super cool star chart. Needs to find the Serpent.
Serpent.
Or another Charger.
Charger, yes. And then Equinox doesn't do enough here.
1 HP on the Nexus. What was the draw? No!
Oh, no!
Wait, can Moonsilver? There's no units?
Enough? I don't think so. There was no units.
This is how you want to win. When you have no cards left in hand and then you close out the game. Everything on the table. Casper putting his all into those plays. And Broken Ball coming up with an incredibly spell-heavy hand wasn't able to make it work, unfortunately. I wonder if like a star shaping or something could have been good there. There was the line of just going for the guiding touch rather than something like a crescent strike there, concerted strike to stop the 4 damage from coming through. But I think if you're just going for the heal and the card draw, you are probably feeling pretty safe. After you drew all spells, all your late game units, the chances of not getting something playable there was quite low.
Yeah, that was... Man, and I feel like Casman has to be breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief because the Scouts deck has been the deck that's held him back in this tournament so far, where he's been pretty solid with the Akshan Sivir. I mean, there's been some cases where we haven't seen the Akshan Sivir, but generally, I feel like the Scouts was the one to really get out of the way, and now he's probably feeling pretty confident.
Petrosite Broadwing could swing there, but it's just going to relax. I like this where Casman has, even though he's playing these very aggressive decks, kind of just his style as a player is very board centric, where you're just going to develop and wait and bide your time to get this key swing turn that kind of puts your opponent permanently on the back foot. It's a very old school, like Demacia, Ionia, Fiora Shen style of development here. Sivir on round 4.
Yeah, top decking the Sivir makes the curve a lot easier, but oh, this Blinded Mystic saying no to Formidable, making this a 0-3 chump blocker that doesn't do anything else.
Oh no, just takes the magic out of the stone bird. I can just imagine it just like falling out of the sky, just hitting the ground.
Wings all crinkled up.
So, do we block here is the thing. I think that when it comes to Casman's stance in this game, you are in a position where your HP doesn't really matter, and it comes down purely to board control. Because if you died to burn, it's probably because you didn't have any pressure on the opponent anyway. And Shaped Stone is the answer here. So Sivir is able to survive this trade. There is a second Sivir in hand, so it does make sense that Casman would try to put this card down, force another piece out of Broken Ball.
Yeah, still taking 6 damage here, though, going down to 9. Potentially. I mean, we might see like a concerted, there's like a buff here or something, but I assume that this would just go through. Yeah, so definitely gives Broken Ball a lot of info here. I feel like the concerted strike is probably a read from Broken Ball here, based off the way that he was willing to put a Sivir into harm's way.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, we saw Broken Ball earlier make insane hand reads, you know, reading that there wasn't a rally and such earlier. So I feel like he has definitely got that one down at least.
We've got a 4 Demacia potentially here for just another big swing, forcing Broken Ball to trade away most of this board. But it doesn't feel that great, especially with this Radiant Guardian here. It can just take a chump block and offset a lot of the damage you're swinging through with. So we could just see a development into potentially Concerted Strike to move this out of the way. If I'm going to refresh my memory, but I believe Broken Ball is only on the 1 copy of Radiant Guardian for this Luxaphelios build.
Yes, he is on the single copy. Ooh.
And we've seen it. I mean, when you're playing a board-based deck, something very aggressive, Radiant Guardian just can sometimes solo you. And what's the level up here for Sivir?
Well, looks like our Stone Birdie's wings have regrown a little bit, getting 3 attack now.
So that's pretty good. And I like the setup here. Just pulling the Lux. You want the Radiant Guardian to trade to get the value trade at the top of the combat. And then you just punch all the way down. And so by doing it like this, you're forcing, again, another card or a bad trade down the line. So Shapestone, pardon me, the Sharp Sight will allow the Radiant Guardian to heal for a ton and then also live for another swing.
Yep, and Lux living as well, and you know that's been the critical component of this deck each time. It's the only champion that's a 3 of in the list, while the other ones are 2 and 1 ofs respectively. And we've seen the Lux be able to just take games away, so she's got a partial level up from the 2 mana spent on her, but I feel like she'll be leveling and start taking out these units quite soon.
Because of the 4 Demacia, Sivir is now back up to 4 HP, still has her spell shield. The only way that Broken Ball can get rid of the spell shield is by using a combat trick, by using an invoked like Falling Comet plus some other combination. So the Sivir is going to be very, very important, especially on this next swing, right? We get the quick attack plus the keyword sharing of the spell shield. And so do you think that Caspian should just open attack here, or is Recurrent Bruiser development solid to go along with the Concerted Strike?
It's such a tough call on this spot. I mean, this is the spot now that Lux has been able to live, and, you know, Broken Ball has been able to just take whichever pass he's wanted. This is where it gets really tough in Caspian's situation, and you really do need a rally to have any chance at winning this game, and even then, it feels like you're just kind of doomed no matter which direction you go. So I don't mind the open attack here. I don't think I really mind developing either, but you're just in an awkward, like, if you develop here the Bruiser and then you're like, oh, I have Concerted Strike, you have no way of interacting after that, and Broken Ball is a very patient player. He's going to be able to punish that, I feel like. So open attack does make sense, but it is one of those awkward cases where it feels like you're just stuck in Caspian's position.
Bruiser is indeed developed. Needs to get that lucky find. Trying to snowball even harder on this Sivir. The lucky find can get stats, keywords like fearsome, keywords like overwhelm that can be so strong for closing out these games with the lack of Absolver currently in the hand. Akshan was never developed to have the Warlord's Palace for that very clutch predict draw. And if enough damage is done, maybe Caspian gets a cheeky ricochet lethal.
Yeah, that would be one of the better hopes right now. Already playing... Ooh, gonna level up this Lux here with perfect 6. We had the 2+3+1. Making sure none of that mana goes to waste.
And then the final spark. Answers the Broadwing. Or maybe clears this 3-4. Yeah, you answer the Broadwing, so you're able to pick your trades a little bit better. Caspian can respond to this with Concerted Strike. And this is very important to note. The first strike pops the barrier, and the second strike will finish off the Radiant Guardian. Broken Ball,
a lucky find as well.
Broken Ball does have their own Concerted Strike to crack back with. So Recurrent Bruiser does go down, not able to strike, not able to get that lucky find. Petrocite Broadwing also taken out of the mix.
And deciding whether to attack the Sivir or not, I mean, a Sharp Sight could easily kill her on, you know, Sharp Sight on Lux. So decides not to take that gamble. I mean, there hasn't really been a reason for Broken Ball to play Sharp Sight in the past, so it's definitely, you know, a potential of him having it. So I think...
and then back up to 20 HP with the Lux in play. This is the stabilization from Broken Ball. The open attack did seem quite good if you didn't develop the Recurrent Bruiser that last round, but I think the line where if Recurrent Bruiser and Concerted Strike, everything goes your way, you're able to potentially close out, is what Caspian was really hoping for. The first game was certainly a miracle, able to take it with scouts, but trying to make that happen again is certainly a very tall order. Lux is just dominating the board now. So many expensive spells, so many final sparks. This 0-3 Petrocite Broadwing, just after getting silenced by the Blinded Mystic, there's just nothing to be done for it.
Yep, and this final spark, along with this 4 Demacia on all these units, is gonna go ahead and clear off the board. And after that, we all know when Demacia loses the board, it's done. There's no coming back in most cases, and it looks like it's gonna be the case here too.
Yeah, with the 4 Demacia also being used, this Radiant Guardian is just healing for even more, is going to be back up to maximum HP. It's actually lethal here now that I'm looking at it.
Yeah.
So, Broken Ball taking game number 2. Luxafelios finding the win, and Castman going to go into game 3 with hopefully an even more aggressive mindset. I think that the way to win versus Broken Ball's anti-Demacia lineup is just to go for these really ignorant callouts, essentially. Just go full Unga Bunga and try to find that out where you're abusing your opponent not having good draws.
Yep, and then, of course, we've seen it. It's only been done with the Golden Aegis. A really important card, and in this case too, Akshan on 2 made a huge difference. Not having that Akshan to get that little extra power in that mid game was really important as well.
I mean, even if the Recurrent Bruiser wasn't developed on that turn and you just open attack with the Sivir, the Radiant Guardian still had like a really good value trade across the board. There was still a concerted strike to crack back to stop. We did have the spell shield keyword sharing though. I really wonder if that would have been a stronger trajectory to victory rather than trying to just double down on that current advantage. But with that all being said, a fantastic starting hand for Broken Ball. Double Field of Rush Draw feels bad, but Gnar it does a lot of heavy lifting in the mid game.
He does indeed. The Double Field of Rush, though, against such an aggressive deck is giving me it's making me uncomfortable.
Yeah, Broken Ball is essentially playing with -2 cards, and things could go very, very haywire. Shielded Duran with the Broadwing is basically going to nullify all of the early mid-game developments. Broken Ball getting blessed with the second top-decked Avaros and Sentry, getting more blockers, getting more card draw. Blighted Ravine can be a great answer to wipe this board and heal a little bit. Kindly Tavern Keeper and Catalyst also being drawn. All of this early work by Castman is about to get invalidated and offset.
But, man, Castman's hand is incredibly awkward. He has 1 unit in hand, and 2 of them are concerted strikes. It's just a very weird spot to be in. He kind of needs to top deck more units, like that one, for instance. However, at 2 health, it, wouldn't always be the best, but of course develops the Bruiser here instead, which definitely the right call.
We'll see if we can begin to start beating down and snowballing this game. Broken Ball does have access to Blighted Ravine here. Clears the Broadwing, clears the Bright Steel Protector. Shielded Durand is indeed the answer. We get the lucky find off the Bruiser on this open attack, potentially concerted strike to slap whatever might be developed post-combat. Broken Ball has Field Rush in 2 more rounds, and once that connects, Castman is not going to be able to do anything versus big 10-10s. This build of Akshan Sivir wants to be aggressive and does not run Rite of Negation.
And going for the Gnar here, something that every player kind of enjoys doing at this point, is killing a Gnar by the time it hits the board, not allowing it to level up. And
Broken Ball not opting for the Will of Ionia here. Just gonna let that go through. Has Faces of the Old Ones, wants to ramp a little bit further.
Yeah, really looking to go for the strong board. Trying to get to this Field of Rush turn. I mean, also too, the If That Stairs does a lot here too.
Lucky find comes through. You have the 4 mana open for deny, so you aren't worried about a rally here to punish this play. Broken Ball is actually playing very comfortably here. But Castman has to go for it, right? You have to, like I said, you have to call out your opponent and try to force them to have these answers. And now with Broken Ball tapped out of mana, this takes away the Field of Rush.
Yeah, definitely had to go for it there. Feels bad that it got denied. It would have been a huge swing if it had gone off. And there it is, the If That Stairs doing 3 damage to all the units.
We have Concerted Strike and Shaped Stone to protect this Recurrent Bruiser from the 3 damage AoE.
Yeah, that double feel the rush is still just... It's just making this look like a train wreck.
Even though Broken Ball has been in this awkward spot where you can't cast the Feel the Rush, the fact of the matter is that Castman is still the one that's on a clock. So it means that you can't get... You're forced to make all of these reckless plays, right? We've got Lucky Find now. Maybe we try to put Spell Shield on something or extra stats so that this Bruiser can survive the Pokey Stick. +1/+1. Or Spell Shield.
Or Spell Shield. Trying to decide which one is the better one between the two.
If we go for Spell Shield here, it forces Pokey Stick plus Palm, Pokey Stick plus Will of Ionia. This is just Castman once again saying, I'm forcing you to have the key specific combinations of cards.
Yep, and Demacia running into its typical problem of getting low on resources here. So, as you said, Castman is on a timer, and it is shrinking during this part. So, we'll have to see, is he able to pull it out? I mean, this is a pretty strong development overall. Akshan being able to make a pretty solid trade. We do see the Will of Ionia kind of just lurking in the depths right now.
Finally, Tavern Keeper is developed. Going to heal a little bit, get another blocker. Doesn't want to just play the Pokey Stick plus Will of Ionia. You have the trade into the Bruiser here regardless. One more Lucky Find comes through. That's one more acceleration point for the Warlord's Palace. You're floating the 3 mana finally to set up for Feel the Rush. Fortunately, Gnar and Trundle are both unleveled, so they're just big units that you only need to block one of.
Finds the +1/+1. You know, just giving a little bit more health to stay alive. The one attack doesn't matter too much. The Feel the Rush coming out with what we've been working, ramping toward. And it's going to be what attempts to close the game. However, neither of the champions will be leveled, so neither of them have overwhelmed this round. However, they are still 2 10/10s that need to be dealt with.
Concerted Strike can be cashed in here. This is 2 procs for the Warlord's Palace, trying to get that leveled up as much as possible. Double Concerted Strike!
Has to be able to 10 mana remove a Gnar. That's not what you want to see, but I think it's a must.
We slap this Gnar around, get it out of the way. This also means that there's no Pokey Stick developed. We still have mana next round for the grappling hook to fight for more tempo. The Warlord's Palace hatches beautifully just when you need it to. You can take the 10 damage from the Trundle in order to save your board.
Yeah, wishes he could use the grappling hook here instead, but because the grappling hook requires the Concerted Strike to go off first, won't have the time to be able to do that.
So there is the answer. The quadruple strike. 10 damage comes through from the Trundle. We've got Akshan surviving here. So now the question is, do we just go for burst speed, summon that Sandstone Charger into the Petricite Broadwing pull, into the attack?
Yup. The only way to do it, the only chance.
We've got Will of Ionia and the top deck 3 Sisters.
Oh, it's just not going to be enough. But
so that's going to be Flash Freeze and a bounce. Broken Ball with the awkward double Feel the Rush in the opening hand, flying by the seat of his pants. But just drawing the cards you need to stop Castman, who also had a beautiful sequence this entire game. If Broken Ball was missing a key card at any point in this game, would have gone down. The deny for the Aegis, the Will of Ionia here, having just the right amount of blockers for this aggression, and now the 3 Sisters top deck.
It's just absolutely critical. It was almost a perfect lethal, but there is still a bit more game to be played here. I mean, the Trundle doesn't have Overwhelm yet, but it's about to. And
we have mana for a second Feel the Rush after this
that would do it.
pillar.
That's probably what we'll be seeing here.
And so now we have the Overwhelm with the Trundle. This means that Feel the Rush is also going to summon another big Trundle with Overwhelm. Broken Ball is about to close out game number 3 in the grand finals. I mean, with this anti-Demacia, anti-aggression lineup, it is certainly no surprise. But Castman was able to battle it all the way out of the lower bracket and take this to a game 3. So certainly well played there. We've all been in the same scenario, trying to climb the tall mountain of a Feel the Rush deck versus your board-based strategy.
There it is. The mighty Trundles are swinging in for 14 and 13 damage respectively, and Nara goes ahead and adds that extra 10 as well. And congrats to Broken Ball for Fight Night Challenge.
I mean, a great return to form. He's been a very heavy hitter, again, one of the top players in the Italian scene. I believe Broken Ball was the premier player from that country, really put Italy on the map as one of the most respected scenes in the early days of Runeterra, when it was like Germany and the UK were like really top regions. Broken Ball was getting a lot of players from Italy as well and training them up. And now he's showing that my read on the meta is strong. The decks I like to play and want to play are strong. And I'm going to use my Targonian patience to take these really wild passes and use my godlike hand reading to come to a win. But again, Castman was also training in the mountains with the scouts and the Sivir Akshan, found these really aggressive lines and tempo that these lists sometimes aren't known for. And again, gave Broken Ball a run for his money, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Broken Ball just came here, had the read on the meta, and just took care of business. To the fact where I'm surprised the tournament's already over because he was just so clean.
Yes, that's the best way to put it. Absolutely cold, clean. We didn't see any sweat, any tilt. He just got to business. And with that, we will have an interview with Broken Ball after this quick break. So stick around and we'll ask him his thoughts on the metagame. Stay tuned. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Fight Night Legends EU. We just got done concluding the grand finals. We're about to jump into the winner's interview, but before that, we have a special guest on the broadcast. Castman has joined us in the call to share some words. So we're going to let you take it away, Castman.
I mean, I really want to thank everyone for the support from beginning to start, and I'm really sorry for the Ultraman incident. Like, I really wanted to play that out at the very end, and as I said, I don't deserve this spot here. It's through Ultraman's grace and everything. I really want to thank Grandpa Rogi, who was a god teaching me on severe action scouts I've learned from Gems and Dizzy to win, and the Tank Buster for the Banditry deck, and everyone else that has been supporting. I don't know who I forgot mentioning, but you all have a special place in my heart, guys. And you, the caster, since I'm also a caster, thank you for all your hard work all the time. And maybe we're going to see each other later, but thank you, guys. And GG's to Broken, clean player. He did what he needed to do. Congrats to everyone and everyone that participated. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you so much for those kind words and shout outs, Mr. Castman. You will, of course, be invited back for the next fight night. So you'll just have to make sure that you are worthy of the grace granted to you by Ultraman, who again had to sadly withdraw from the tournament due to a power outage. But Castman was just sharing some words there. Before we jump to Broken Ball, I do want to take a quick look at the bracket and kind of take a look at how we got to this point. Broken Ball, again, playing clean has been his motto for the entire tournament. 2-0 against Waimomo, 2-0 against Ultraman, 2-0 versus Tricky. Castman was the only player who was able to take a single game off of him. And overall, he's, as you said, Silverfuse before the break, had a very clean read on the meta game and just got to business.
Yep, just as I said, just came in, saw what needed to be done, did it, and now we gotta talk to him before he gets out.
Yep, and so we have Broken Ball here now at the conclusion of the tournament. We're going to ask him a few questions to see his view on the metagame. How are you doing, Broken Ball?
Hello, everyone.
Disembodied voice, Broken Ball. So when it comes to Fight Night, congratulations, first and foremost, because I know that you've been in the EU scene for a very long time. I feel like I've been looking forward to you once again in the winner's circle of Fight Night, so congratulations. The deck I wanted to ask you about first, of course, was the Field of Mina deck. This list, do you think it's a prominent player in the metagame, or is it still maintaining its stance as just a counter deck for now?
So I should credit Pat for the list, first of all, because I saw he topped some tournament last week with it. I just grabbed the list, made a few changes, and tried it out in the Italian tournament. There's a sort of league going in Italy. It went well there, and it performed. I kind of stopped. I think it's a solid deck. I think the meta right now is too varied to try to just be perfect into everything. So the deck performs. It did well. It did what it had to do. I think it's a valid option to FTR, the normal one with SI, which is a very good deck right now, once you take out the rally decks. And I think this deck is better into the rally deck, so it definitely has this place in the meta game. It just struggles a little bit more at closing out games.
Okay. So we've got that on the docket, and the Lux of Felios with the Zoe there. Where did you grab that from? I think it was Sergi who I saw kind of popularizing it about a month ago.
I see for the Italian league that was on Thursday. I needed a third deck. I have like 40 decks in my builder, all with a written new deck. I saw Lux of Felios. I made the list from scratch. Without playing a single game, I queued it into the Italian league. I top cutted there. So the list works. I sent it to Fight Night to try it a bit more, and apparently it still works. And
so no changes to the list between the Italian league and today?
Nope, apparently it was perfect.
Oh, perfect first try. The Frame 1 Lux of Felios.
But it's just really fun to play. I really like the whole crescendum. Pulling the bird into Severum is like one of the most satisfying things you can do. It's really good. Also, I really like that I have like a bunch of one-offs and two-offs, and they just come to me perfectly. Like every combat trick you see, it's a two-off. The strike spells are a one-off, and they just come at the right time. it's perfect.
I mean, when you're operating at such a high level, you know that you can just trust in your deck. Broken Ball really channeling the heart of the cards here. And the third deck, the Lulu Fizz, we know that this is kind of like your new favorite deck with the Yordles and Arms. I gotta ask you,
Lulu Jinx is my favorite deck.
The Lulu Jinx, pardon me. You've brought Lulu Fizz to this one.
Yeah.
So I know that you probably feel bad having to
I do.
to drop your very favorite deck, but how do you feel about the treasure trash debate for archetypes of this nature?
I think it's S.
Oh, okay. Call out everybody. Treasure trash.
It's a good content creator card, you know. Like if you're streaming,
yeah, it is.
you need some content. You play a broken deck and you put a random one-off in to make some clips. Sure, do it. But if you want to win, like play good cards. Like, come on.
Oh man, you heard it here first. Treasure trash is only for content creators. Everybody else is banned from using it.
But it feels really bad that I have to play this broken deck over Lulu Jinx. I really hope Yordle in Arms gets nuked out of existence so I can go back to play Lulu Jinx.
I mean, we're on the cusp of a new metagame, hopefully with this big Riot patch coming through. And outside of Lulu Jinx, is there any other decks that you're really looking forward to playing potentially once the top decks get nerfed a bit?
So my favorite decks are usually is Lulu Jinx without a doubt. I really like Targon, but when it isn't a part of the meta. Because if I have to play a Targon mirror, I actually prefer doing anything else in my life than playing a Targon mirror. So if Targon says that it is, it's good. And other than that, I don't think there's a Shellfolk for sure. I want to play some Shellfolk again.
Yeah, Shellfolk's still hanging on in NA.
And I really would love to see some sort of Lectune Yordle revert. Like I really like when it's summoned the Dart on play.
Yeah,
I think it could be a bit smaller, but I really like the fact that they gave you the ping on play.
I really like that too. I'm hoping for some Caitlyn Teemo spice here in the next metagame. But Silverfuse, I forgot to kind of toss to you. Did you have any questions for Sir Broken Ball here?
I don't think so. Actually, I do have one. How confident did you feel in your matches? Like, which one were you the most worried about, if you were worried about one?
Every single matchup where I was against Severe Action, especially with Fildemina, especially against Trick, because he ran one Rite of Negation. Like that game was really nerve-wracking to play because I remember when I played Pod and he had Rally Mana. You can see me like say 3 like this because I counted how many units he would have if he rallied. I survived almost perfectly by a silver of a health even if he had rally. So I played it and then I FTR. I hope he didn't have the one of Rite of Negation because if he had it would have been a blowout. He didn't have it and I won.
Yeah, that was a very close game.
Yeah, but I think that was the closest matchup. Like when I'm Fildemina against Severe Action, I'm very likely. I don't know how the matchup is supposed to go, but apparently it went well today.
Okay. And so one final question before we let you go. Moving into the next week's tournament, you'll be invited back. Who would you like to see invited so that you could play against them potentially?
I would like to see Marcus come back.
Ooh, very nice.
I know he hit Masters recently, and I want to see if the old man still ascends.
Maybe it'll work out. He is a bit of a cracked player. He brought Deep to Fight Night way back in the day, won 3 in a row when Fight Night EU was just getting started. So maybe he will answer the call.
But
with that all being said,
out.
He might chicken out. We'll have to see. Maybe you'll be able to talk him into it over the next week. But again, I want to thank you, Broken Ball, for your clean play today, your entertaining games, and the fact that you took the extra time after the tournament to share your thoughts on your decks and the metagame. I'm really looking forward to seeing you next week. And so everyone here at home, thank you as well for your time and attention and your patience earlier for our little snafu. But that's going to be it for us. We will see you all next time. And don't forget about Fight Night NA on Monday. Peace.